Oh, yeah. I forgot to do that. There we go.
There we go. Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller. My co-host, Nick Giffen of the Action Network. We are down to 8-4. 8 drivers remaining, 4 races remaining in the NASCAR Cup Series 2023 season before we crown a champion. Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch, and Ross Chastain, my boy Ross Chastain, eliminated in this last round of the playoffs. I don't know if anybody's watching on YouTube. This is the first time of me wearing my Trackhouse shirt in honor of our mid-season champion, Ross Chastain, getting eliminated this past weekend. Shout out to him. But AJ Allmendinger in victory lane, which we talked about on the pod last weekend. We also talked about Alex Bowman getting a top 10 finish and those odds. He got a top 10 finish. Same with Chris Buescher, top 10 finish. And fuck Christopher Bell. I will say that right now. But overall,
dude, yeah, I agree.
I am. It's not my whine about it, but it could easily be my whine about it. Is how much money Christopher Bell has cost me over the years. But AJ Allmendinger gets his win. Clearly, he's out at Colleague Racing. We also have the 2024 schedule that dropped last week that we can talk about. But first, we're talking about the Charlotte Roval race, which, according to Jeff Gluck's poll, not many people liked. 58.8% called that a good race. It ranks number 5 of 6 of Roval races. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I thought it was fine. It's pretty hard to pass, but you could, especially once you kind of came through that infield section onto what would be going into turns 1 and 2 in the oval. Felt like you could make some moves there and get underneath the car to pass. So that was fine. I obviously not a fan of the stage yellows. I wish we could have just kind of run under green, because it definitely screwed some drivers. Like Bubba Wallace, for example, has to stage points race, but then you get mired all the way back in 25th, and you have to race your way forward, and it's really hard to pass. I think it was just kind of a frustrating deal, because he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. And part of that is, of course, you need to be in a better position coming into the race. But at the same time, like, he could go on the winning strategy and then miss out on 20 points from 15 points from stages, or he could go for the stage points and then miss out on 15 points from finishing position because he's so far back and it's so hard to pass. So it was fine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was just like meh.
Yeah. The main thing that, guys like Bob Pockrass talked about all week was it's one of those races where nobody's going to be mad if it's not on the schedule next year. But they really have no opinion on it. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't think it's as awful as people think it is. Like,
I agree.
I think it's a good track, but like you said, it can be hard to pass. And we've seen that throughout.
And we've seen good races here on the Roval. It's the car. It's the damn car, right? Like, everything right now boils down to this car just being the problem. It's not the track. We've seen great races at this track. We've seen great races at many other tracks that have had absolutely shitty or mediocre races this year. It's the car.
Yeah. But like I said, AJ Allmendinger ran a near perfect race. Driver rating 142.5. Best green flag speed, best average running position. Gets that win. He's likely out at Colleague Racing at the end of the year. Quite emotional in the post race interview. William Byron almost took it. He almost got another win on the year, but he finished second. Kyle Busch comes up short, trying to make it into the next round, but he finishes third. Ty Gibbs with another top 5 finish. He's coming on strong these past 2 months. Obviously has a lot of finishes outside the top 20, but when he does not have issues, he's a legitimate top 5 threat. Joey Logano rounding out the top 5, and then Tyler Reddick. We talked about it last week, points racing, and you have to account for that. I feel like a lot of our analysis last week was spot on for this race. I don't know about you, but like everything kind of played out exactly how we thought it would. Outside of like a couple minor issues, but like when that whole race was all said and done, it came out exactly like we said it would. And I think a big part of that, and I wrote it up on something we're going to talk about later in the pod about Las Vegas coming up, is right now sports books are 100% focused on NFL, and they are getting a little bit lazy on NASCAR lines. And this is now the time to take advantage. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. It was weird because at this point last year is where I finally like cooled off, because remember last year I heated up like right at the start of the playoffs, right before the playoffs, and through like the first round and a half of the playoffs, and then I just like plateaued at the end of the year. So I think it depends, but I definitely agree that, you know, it's possible that sports books are slacking a little bit, but at the same time, you know, not that I'm slacking, but my attention is certainly divided as well, just given the nature of my job. But I do think, I mean, I saw you, we'll talk about, of course, Las Vegas in a little bit, but I've already seen you grab several lines that were pretty soft on a certain driver. So, yeah, I think it's certainly possible that books are getting pretty soft. I just definitely have some divided attention right now, for sure. It's not like I'm going to make worse bets. I mean, obviously, I bet A.J. Allmendinger to win. My top 10 bets, 2 of the 3 hit, and they were all plus money. Well, Christopher Bell was even. And that one was unfortunate. I mean, that's like essentially my whine about it, is just the fact that he couldn't get back through the field because of these the stage stuff.
Christopher Bell is dead to me.
It's not his fault though. Like he did nothing wrong. He had a great race going, and he got screwed by that caution timing. But yeah, he got screwed by the caution timing. He had a top 3 or 5 car for sure.
Yeah.
As did Bubba Wallace, top 3 or 5 car. So
and they both got the stage points in those situations. So
yeah, but you're right. I think the books have the potential to be pretty soft right now, and you know, if you're able to grab openers, do it. Like, for example, and I don't want to get too far into Texas or anything Las Vegas, because we have a lot to talk about, but I grabbed an opener as well. I didn't track it because the tracking wasn't set up in the app, and by the time it was set up in the app, it already moved big time. So we'll talk about it, but of course, as always, I have the screenshot because people always, the long-time regular listeners don't, but always the random few who are like, oh, you didn't get that. So, of course, I have the screenshot from Monday, right when lines dropped. So I've got one bet in so far this week.
You know, you talked about opening lines, but even like last week with the Charlotte Roval closing lines, like Bowman got longer for his top 10. He got up to plus 190. Buescher got up to plus 130. Like, we were on those guys on Tuesday at shorter odds. Mm-hmm. So, like,
we got a little unlucky just based off them getting longer and also their qualifying and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. And to be fair, I didn't take them after qualifying. I would have, but so my boss, Sean Kerner at Action Network, was out sick this week, and he's our big, like, number 1 NFL guy, one of the best, most accurate fantasy football projectors. Like, he's been number 1 in the Fantasy Pros contests many times over the past several years. Well, he was like out, like sick out, very. So I filled in as much as I could for him. So my NASCAR attention this weekend was non-existent. So my only bets were pre-practice qualifying.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to grab. You know, Bowman went up to plus 190 after qualifying. You know, he qualified like 18th or 19th or whatever, or actually it was 16th. And yeah, like of course, like, if I like him before at the same odds and he showed good speed in practice, I'm going to double down, and that's exactly what I did. And then, you know, Buescher, I was a little on the fence with Buescher. I didn't hit Buescher again afterwards, but I was fine with that. You know, he finished 7th, and then, you know, the whole Christopher Bell thing. But yeah, any takeaways from overall road courses this year? Because we had 6 different road course races this year, 6 different winners, and I think that's very noteworthy for the overall season, because obviously the years that we had just 2 road course races, it was quite common to have 2 different or multiple winners. But I feel like since the schedule is, I'm very surprised that we had 6 different winners this year. Are you?
No,
I'm
not. Remember last year? I mean, we didn't have 6 different winners last year, but we had Chastain, Suarez, Tyler Reddick. I believe Chase Elliott won no road course races last year, which is kind of a surprise.
When's the last time Chase Elliott won a road course?
Yeah, I know, exactly. When was it? So it's been a long time. I think we had Reddick win 3, and then maybe everybody else won a couple. So let's see, Reddick won. No, he just won 2. So we had 2 Reddicks, a Suarez, a Chastain. I'm already forgetting who else, but I'm not that surprised that we had a bunch of different winners. I think I'm more. We had Kyle Larson win at the Glen. That's the one I was thinking of. And then we had Christopher Bell win at the Roval. So yeah, we had 4 different winners last year. And then when you have Reddick go to a different team, making Toyota come back. Remember, because Toyota was so down last year. Mm-hmm. It was just a wide open deal at road courses here. There wasn't a dominant manufacturer. There wasn't a dominant team, right? Like you might say, well, Toyota or maybe Chevy, Hendrick, that kind of stuff. But then Michael McDowell wins a race, so and dominated, and he's been so good at all the road courses this year, as has, for the most part, Chris Buescher. So it's been parity across the board at the road courses, and it doesn't surprise me one bit that we have 6 different winners. Honestly, I think the most surprising thing is Chase Elliott hasn't won a road course race in 2+ years.
Guess how many races?
It was Road America 2021, I remember, because I did not get to watch that race. But I remember that was the last road course that he won.
14 races since his last
14 road
course
courses,
win.
wow.
14 road course races, which, obviously he hasn't been bad. Like, he has a couple, 2 or 3 runner-up finishes over those 14 races and has had the speed, but it's
more
crazy.
Than that. 12, it's 15.
No.
Oh, because he didn't run COTA earlier this year. That's why it's 14 for him.
Yeah.
But 15 road course races, but 14 for him. Yeah.
So, yeah. But still, like that's crazy because he went on that streak of he won 4 in a row and then he won 6 of 8 or 6 of 9, and now 0 for his last 14. But
he had a great car. He had a great car this past weekend. He was really fast. He took the lead on speed. A little bit of strategy as well because other guys pitted and he hadn't quite yet or whatever. He was one of those that got screwed by that unfortunate caution timing. It was not a stage caution, but it led to it just ran over into the stage, so it kind of screwed him over. As similar with Christopher Bell and a couple others, but he had a great car. Just once again, road course. I have such a hard time betting favorites at road courses. You know why? Because Chase Elliott's been at longest 6, 7, 8 to 1 at these road courses for the last 14 of them, and he's won 0. Like, you'd need to win 2 straight with Chase Elliott to make up all the losses if you bet him every road course the past 14.
Mm-hmm. And someone like a Tyler Reddick, he's typically after qualifying in practice, he's typically in the 3.5 to 4 range. Not to mention, I think last week he opened at 5. But over the last 8 road course races, he's won 1 of them. So it's I'm with you there. Obviously, I'm kicking myself for my personal bias of not betting AJ Allmendinger. Like I literally called it on the pod last week.
You did.
I said he's going to win, and I'm going to hate myself for it. I don't hate myself for it, but it is just a personal thing. But I felt
my pick to win, right?
Exactly.
My pick to win.
You got another win.
There you go.
In the pick to win this year. Yeah.
And
we
just
went 1-2.
Yeah. And we're on fire as far as the playoffs and picks to win or things like that. So we're doing really well. And it was overall for me, I just feel good, right? Like, you remember last week I talked about a little bit in depth about I'm down 25, 30 units in the past 2.5, 3 months, something like that. Basically 10 units a month I was averaging down for the past 2.5, 3 months. It's nice to have a plus 6.5 betting unit week to bring it down, to stop the bleeding. We're not on an upswing, right? We've had 1 positive race, we being me and people that follow me. But, it was good. And I told you last week, I feel sharp. I don't feel like I'm making bad bets or bad decisions. Just feel like it hasn't gone my way. And then it finally, went my way, and everything, like you said from the top, everything we talked about played out the way it did. And I think that was, really, really exciting for both of us, just because we both had a really strong handicapping kind of race.
you need those weeks because as much as the weeks that that your process was good, that your analysis was good, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the results. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So when you have a race like this where the results line up directly with the analysis, it gives you an extra boost. Like I felt good about this ever since I saw the race results. I'm like, I know this is going to be a good podcast episode here because we're both going to be fucking a little bit jacked from this last weekend. Plus,
yeah.
It's we're getting to the final 4 races. This is where you and I both like. I personally, this is my part of the season right here. These last 12 races.
Oh yeah, you love this part.
This is where I'm always on fire. It happens every single year. It's happening again this year. My algorithm has hit. It's projected the winner in the top 4 in like the last eight of the last 9 races or something. Like this is the time of the year that I'm on, and this is the time of year I love. Like I obviously like I'm excited at the beginning of the year, but yeah, like it's always definitely reassuring to weeks like that after a down week, and that's what you need in this sport when you're betting on it, when you're playing DFS. You need those weeks to reaffirm, at least mentally, in my opinion. Like I don't know about you, I assume you're the same way, but I always need those weeks to just reaffirm like this is how the season goes, and a good reminder. But
yeah, certainly. I mean, for me, it was just like validation that people don't need to doubt the process. Not that anybody did. Like people that I have not had any like haters pop out of the woodwork or anything like that, even during my downswing. But just for those that follow me and believe in me, A, I appreciate it, and B, it's like the nice validation there because I really do feel like the process has been strong the past 2 or 3 months. It just again, hasn't worked out. We've had, a guy betting plus 800, plus 900 to finish top 10. He finishes 11th, and I've had 2 or 3 of those in the past month, right? If even one of those hits, it stops the bleeding a whole lot more as well. And then, other things like a top Toyota or top this or that, all have missed by like little bits here and there, and I'm totally fine with it. I tend, and you know me, you've known me for almost a decade. I tend to be a longer shot better, a contrarian DFS player. I don't do the chalk deal. I don't like betting chalky stuff. I don't like DFSing chalky stuff. Not that it's bad to play chalk. I will play chalk. There's times, and we talked about that Chicagoland race in 2018. I played 150 lineups. I played 30 lineups 5 times each, and they were all just chalk lineups. It just depends. But my typical angle is most people are safe. Most people don't want to take big risks. And by doing so, you gain an advantage. And it's the same with sports books. They don't understand tail probabilities as much. They probably do, but like also part of it is the bettors don't bet it as much. So you end up getting a little more value. But I think this year in particular, based off of last year where like every tail probability seemed like it hit, right? Like 125 to 1, 80 to 1, all these long shots hit. It made bettors and books aware that we can't be offering these crazy odds on these drivers as much. So it's made the longer shots harder to find. And I still gravitate toward them, but I think it also, becomes thinner on the value. While it's still value, it's still thinner. So you don't make as much as quickly, even if you have good weeks, you don't make as much as quickly.
Mm-hmm. Which is, not good for the, just overall boasting. People don't want to see the slow grind of up 20 units. They want the up 20 units in 1 week. But
exactly.
Hey, as long as we're all making money, I'm fine with it. I did notice, shout out to, Ryan Stevens over there on Win the Race. I know they had a big weekend.
God, huge week. Huge week. Awesome.
That whole team, they absolutely crushed it.
Yes.
And yeah, shout out to them. I can't,
They've been like you, like this time of year is good for you. They've been crushing it most of this playoffs as well. So they do a great job. They're building a really strong team. They've got a lot of sharp minds. Jordan, I've never, ever paid for NASCAR content. I may consider paying for them next year, depending on what they got. It's good stuff, and I think it's worth it. Like my buddy Greg was one of my followers. Like Greg and I went to high school and everything. And when he got into NASCAR betting, he discovered that I was a NASCAR capper and stuff like that. And he came from like relearning the sport and learning the nuances of it to being one of the sharpest minds in the field. So
he really did.
Yeah, absolutely. He's grinded, he's studied, and like for anybody listening, you can do that too if you put your mind to it. You just gotta know what to do, where to look, who to follow, all that stuff, what data to look at. And he's been doing it for 2 or 3 years of like figuring things out, listening to me tell him where he's wrong, and he embraces that. He embraces when I tell him, "Hey, this is not at all what I'm seeing, and this is why." And he's embraced it and made his process so much better. And now he's a NASCAR content creator himself as far as betting.
Yeah. I think even like at the beginning of last year, I know I followed him early last year, I believe, and not to go like follower count doesn't matter, but it's a good indicator of like how sharp you are overall, just on the general public. But I think when I followed him, he had like 90 something followers.
Yeah,
I know on the Action app, he has a shit ton of followers. I forget how many he has on Twitter.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from he's been doing like system betting on other sports as well, and so people tail him on that stuff. But like NASCAR, you can't really do like system betting, right? Like you can't just be like, I'm gonna bet this thing every time it pops up. Whereas like in NFL or NBA or any other sport, college football, basketball, etc. It's like if you have these set of circumstances, I bet it every time. So a lot of it he's gotten from that, but then from NASCAR itself, like you mentioned, he had like 90 followers on Twitter last year or something. Now he's over 1,000, and he should have several thousand more, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been absolutely crushing it. Like, I'll be honest, I do not give my respect away easily for people in this industry.
Mm-mm.
He's got it. He's got my full respect on that. So if you do not follow Greg Mathern, make sure you do. Make sure you follow Win the Race. All those guys, like I said, they are building an A+
Everybody
team
at Win the Race
for next year.
Sharp
shit.
minds.
Yeah. But as far as the Charlotte Roval goes, like I said, AJ Allmendinger gets another win. It's his 3rd win in the Cup Series, likely his last season with Colleague. Anything else that we can take away from this race outside of Martin Truex Jr. advances again despite his best finish in the playoffs right now is 16th. By the way, this is going to be part of my whine about it, so let's not get too much into this.
I was going to say, actually, maybe we should just wait for the whine about it then to talk about this.
How about this? Let's go right into whine about it right now, because that's a good segue, right?
Yeah, it's a great segue because
Exactly.
if you're going to talk partly about this, there's lots of things to say about this, so go for it.
Yeah, so Wine About It, presented by Luvabella Winery. You guys already know. Best wines out there.
I have
Best
my
tasting
Tecate. I have my Tecate glass that I just capped off a Luvabella wine with. I just finished it, but now I'm switching over to the beer.
I'm going to, if I have any wine in the fridge, I'm going to go grab some after I rant about this. But if not, if you're in Ohio, the Mimosa Luvabella wine is in all Myers, I believe. I believe it's all Myers. Fucking run and get that. Trust me when I tell you, that is the best wine I've ever had.
Jordan, I told you. I had it before you. I told you would love that, and it was good.
I still dream about it. It's so good.
Yes.
I need another bottle of it.
I might have to get another shipment here soon and get at least 2 or 3 of those. I gotta take notes.
Yeah.
My 40th birthday's coming up, Jordan. I might have to get a 40th birthday shipment or something.
You need 40 bottles of wine. You need 40 bottles of mimosa. But my wine about it this week, again, presented by Luvabella Winery, is all these people saying that Martin Truex Jr. is not a true championship contender and that the playoff system is a sham. Okay, let me tell you what. Martin Truex Jr. still has the 5th best average finishing position this year out of all drivers. That is despite the fact that he has been dog shit for the last 2 months.
Yep.
Dog shit in the term of finishes. I will not sit here and try to defend Truex's finishes over the last 2 months. And he quickly said it in his post-race interview. He said they took advantage of the system. They knew the system.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. But the people to sit here and say that, one, Truex is not a championship contender, yes, he is. He's in the round of 8, and all it takes is one good race to get him into the championship. Not to mention, he's still one of the best drivers this year. He still has the second or third most wins this year. I forget. He's tied for second, right? Like Byron has the most, and then everyone else has 3. To sit here and discount Martin Truex Jr. as having a great season is fucking insane.
Yes.
Truex, this is complete recency bias. That you are only looking at these races since the regular season ender at Daytona and beyond. If you look at this whole season, Truex is having a great season. Not to mention, the people that sit here and say that the playoff system is a sham, that Truex should not be in this round, that Truex should be eliminated, are the same ones that are defending the playoff system where people took advantage of not winning and just being good the entire year instead of being great during races. Like, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth here, and it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
Truex is a legitimate championship contender. If he makes it to Phoenix, we're going to sit there, and he's going to be one of the favorites to win. I don't care what you say. The fact of the matter is, these teams, all of them, go through these times of not finding speed. Guess what? William Byron did the same thing. Kyle Larson did the same thing. The fact of the matter is that Truex, it's happening during quite possibly the worst time, the second worst time of the season, the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. The worst time would be the final 4 races. If he doesn't have speed during these final 4 races, that's obviously the worst time for him. But that is this system. He was that good during the regular season that he deserves to get to this round. Based on that, I understand that he does not have any top 10 finishes. He doesn't even have any top 15s in this playoff. He was that good during the regular season that he deserves this, and that they are still a great team. Joe Gibbs Racing is still a good team. Hendrick Motorsports was still a good team when you pointed out during the regular season that they were slower than they've ever been, comparatively speaking, to the field. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Guess who's probably going to win this championship? William Byron or Kyle Larson? Could we have said it 2 months ago that they were the 4th slowest team or the 4th fastest team in the field? Yes. Mm-hmm. So these people that are saying that Truex is not a true championship contender, that this whole thing is a sham, it is insane, because the teams that remain in these playoffs, for the most part, are the best teams this year.
Absolutely.
William Byron, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson are the 4 best teams this year, and right now they're the top 4 teams in the series. Throw in Christopher Bell right there. Chris Buescher's obviously had a great, very consistent year. Tyler Reddick, up and down, but overall he's finding his speed. And then Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, you could lump Reddick, Blaney, Kyle Busch, maybe one or 2 others. And a couple of them made it and a couple of them didn't. But this is exactly how the playoff standings, air quote, should be, based off of what we've seen throughout the totality of the 32 races we've run so far. Remember, we've run, to your point, we've run 32 races. I know Truex has been dog shit for 7 races, but that's 7 out of 32. There's been 25 other races where he has been able to prove himself. And that is, that's exactly to your point there is, yes, the playoffs absolutely mean a ton. But let's look at Kevin Harvick, right? Remember the year he won 9 races and didn't even make the final 4? If Truex did not win 9 races, he only won 3. But if Truex does not have a strong round this round in the round of 8, he's not going to Phoenix, because Harvick had 9 wins going in that round. And he started off the round with a 2nd place finish at Kansas, where he led the most laps. But then he finished 16th at Texas, 17th at Martinsville, and didn't make the final 4 with a 2nd 16th, and 17th. So yeah, Truex has been able to coast his way in to the round of 8, but there's no more coasting available to him.
Yeah. Here's my question for these people that, which I feel like, obviously this is not a one-to-one comparison, but I feel like a lot of these people that are saying that Truex doesn't belong in the final 8 are the same people that were crowning Ross Chastain as champion fucking 12 races into the year. Who in these final 8 doesn't deserve to be there? You could possibly make one case here, and it would be Chris Buescher, but when you actually look at the numbers, you can't, because he's won 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Every single driver in this final 8 deserves to be there. Byron, Truex, Hamlin, Larson, Buescher, Bell, Reddick, Blaney. Those are the 8 best drivers this year.
I agree.
I don't care what you say. This playoff system is working.
Maybe a Kyle Busch in there, right? Like, at worst, 8 of the best 9 best this year.
Yeah, at worst. This playoff system works. I don't care what you say. You can find these minute little details of, oh, this is bullshit. Fact of the matter is this playoff system works. Truex deserves to be there. He's one of the best 8 this season, and he is a legitimate championship contender. And I hope he goes out and wins Vegas this week.
I still have a tweak to the playoff system, and this is my whine about it.
Okay.
Is the playoff system. And I think it's great. I think it's fine. I agree. We're at 8 of the best 9 drivers. But, and what really got me thinking is Ryan for my fantasy race. He's been preaching for a while we should have the playoff points after each round.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I like that. And the more I think about it, the more I look at it, I'm kind of on board with it, but I'd rather just make it 4-3-2-1. 4 races, 3 races, 2 races, 1 race. Because I think the 4 races, Truex, he can coast through a 3-race round. He cannot coast through a 4-race round, right? He was on the cut line after the first 3 races, the first round. If he coasts through the 4th race, he's out. So I'd rather go 4-3-2-1. What that does is it allows more time for the good drivers, the cream, to rise to the top. And then 3 in the next round, the same thing. And then once you're down to the final 8, it's time to perform. I don't care. Like it's like NFL style, right? You only have 1 Super Bowl game. You don't have a best of 7 series. You don't have a best of 5 series. You got 1. So once you get down to the final 8, it's go time. That's what I see. You've had the whole season, the whole playoffs to work your shit out. It's time to go. The only issue, of course, is a 2-race and a 1-race sample size is really small, but that's where we're at now. We have a 1-race sample size for the championship anyway. Why not make it 2 races for 8 drivers? So every 4 drivers, if you think about it, for every 4 drivers, there's a race. 4 races times 4 is 16 drivers. 3 races times 4 is 12 drivers. 2 races times 4 is 8 drivers, and 1 race times 4 is 4 drivers. So that's what I think the playoff system should be. That'll eliminate this Truex, air quote, issue, because people will have less reason to complain about it, which is to exactly your point. I'm agreeing with your point, but I'm also saying I do like a tweak to this system. I don't think it's perfect. For the system we have, absolutely Truex deserves to be where he is, 100%. But I still want to go 4-3-2-1. Well, we aren't going to get there. NASCAR's obviously not doing that next year. I mean, I guess they could. They absolutely could change the rules in the offseason. But to me, 4-3-2-1 is much better than 3-3-3-1. Especially when you're adding Atlanta into the playoffs. What the fuck? God.
So that's going to, again, Wine About It, presented by Luvabella Winery. Make sure you check them out. Again, I always put the link and everything in the description. That's going to segue great into the 2024 schedule, because the 2024 schedule is the perfect time to implement this 4-3-2-1 playoff system, because NASCAR is so set on having Darlington on Labor Day weekend or whatever. What weekend is that? September. First weekend in September. Whatever fucking weekend that is. But now all of a sudden they moved Daytona from the playoff cut line to a week before, and then we have Darlington as the cut line.
Mm-hmm.
This is the perfect time to do 4 races, and Pockrass said the same thing, I believe. This is the perfect time.
I'm glad Bob Pockrass listens to our podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. So now Darlington is a week before. This is the time. I cannot believe the biggest complaint about NASCAR's playoff system is that it is a sham, and that the best drivers can easily be eliminated, that the best driver can easily not win the championship, blah, blah, blah. So they make the conscious decision. I believe they said that they had 30 different schedules before this official one was released. And you come out with the first round being Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and Bristol. Okay? Atlanta, for all intents and purposes, is a super speedway that can easily create wrecks. It's a pseudo speedway, as you say, but it is unpredictable. More predictable than Daytona, Talladega, but it's still unpredictable. Watkins Glen, road course, there are certain drivers that is their style. And then you have Bristol. We have seen last year, we've seen mechanical issues come into play majorly at Bristol.
And in the past, ridiculous crashes that block the field and 12 drivers get involved, or back markers wreck right in front of Brian Blaney, things like that. Like, Bristol's a wild card.
That is your opening round of the playoffs. You consciously make this decision and say that this is going to be the opening round. You know how many drivers we could possibly have? We could have guys like just looking at this season, for example. It would not be that crazy to see Byron, Larson, and Hamlin all out in the first round of the playoffs next year, which would be fucking crazy. This schedule for NASCAR, I don't think is getting enough hate.
I agree. And to tack onto that, when Ryan talks about having the playoff points, if we go 4-3-2-1, that's the perfect time to not have the playoff points, because what that does, if Truex gets into a 2-race season, right, that like second to last round, he should have a big advantage because of all the other stuff. And he still can't sleep on a 2-race season, but if other guys are getting there, they're likely the other guys that have also had a lot of playoff points. So for me, the perfect system is 4-3-2-1. Don't have the playoff points. Maybe I'd tweak it later if it ends up being stupid, where, like, you know, if Harvick gets through, he's basically a shoe-in to Phoenix. That year he won 9 races. Like, if he makes the final round where it's like the round of 8 and it's 2 races, even if 2 other drivers win to qualify themselves to Phoenix, like Harvick's sitting there 40 points to the good or whatever coming into the last race just by not wrecking. So maybe we still have, but you're right. At minimum, and this schedule is ridiculously god-awful. We haven't even mentioned we're starting the year off with 2 super speedway races. I mean, super pseudo speedway races, 2 drafting races. And then we go on the West Coast swing, but the West Coast swing is only 2 races. Whereas it used to be 3, sometimes 4, I think, in the past. And then we go right back to Bristol. Like, and then we're starting the season with 5 out of the first 5 races, 3 air quote wild card. I wouldn't really call Bristol wild card, but 3 kind of random races and 2 West Coast races. Like, it's weird. And then a road course.
And then so you remember when Keselowski proposed schedule changes back in, it's probably been 5-10 years now, but he said, you know, stay on the East Coast, then go to the West Coast, you know, like, cut travel for all these teams.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're staying East Coast, then you're going West Coast for 2 races, then you're going East Coast for a race, then you're going middle of the country for a race. Like, and then you're going way East Coast again, Richmond, Martinsville, and then middle of the country, Texas, down south to Talladega, up northeast for Dover, middle of the country for Kansas. But I'm with you. And they say, like, NASCAR's competition director or whoever, I forget who it was, but he said that they wanted to do Atlanta as the second race to keep the excitement from Daytona. Because of the unpredictability of these super speedway races, that's why they did Atlanta again. This isn't about...
That's terrible.
They're playing once again into, this isn't about the fucking racing. This is just all about the excitement factor. So when you see these people saying NASCAR is WWE, it's getting harder and harder to disagree with them. With all these
obviously
moves that
obviously it's not scripted or anything like that. So
right. Yeah.
there's
I'm
that.
not saying that.
There's definitely a delineation there in terms of like scripted versus not scripted. But as far as entertainment factor, it clearly NASCAR is putting entertainment ahead of racing product and integrity of who's actually better, in my opinion. What I want to see is who's better.
Here's a
I
question
want to see if Jeff Gordon kicks ass and wins 10 races in a season. I want to see that if he's the best, right? That's what I want to see. That's just straight up what I want to see.
Here's a question for you, Nick. If obviously we're going to go to Daytona, we're going to go to Atlanta no matter what, early in the season. If doing the schedule like this causes an increase of viewership for NASCAR by 5%, is it worth it?
No.
You don't think it is?
No.
Those extra
5%?
What would it be? I don't even know. They average like 3 million a race.
Yeah.
So 5% would be 150,000 new viewers.
150,000? No.
Just this tiny little schedule change, you don't think is worth it?
No. Are you going to retain them for the whole season?
I don't know.
How much is
it's
that
hard to say.
150,000 viewers worth?
Depends when they're negotiating their next TV deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if this I think if this is a net positive on viewership, if this actually turns the needle, I'm all right with it. You know,
I'm not all right
Daytona,
with it for
Atlanta.
150,000. Not 100. I'm not all right for 150,000.
What's your
like NASCAR? Like, for example, let's look at IndyCar. IndyCar.
Well,
I want to look at IndyCar real quick because they average like essentially $1 million a race.
Okay.
So 150,000 to IndyCar is 15% growth, which is massive. But 5% growth with losing all of that later in the NFL season anyway. I don't know.
I feel like it's worth it. I actually do.
I don't think it is, but that's me.
I feel like that trend in ownership, or not ownership, but viewership is worth it, because the overall trend in viewership for NASCAR and everything else is Daytona's up here, and then it just drops off as the year goes off, or goes on. Mm-hmm. And if you can maintain just a little bit of that, I feel like it's a net positive for race. Like Atlanta was the 5th race this season. I feel like moving it to the 2nd race, it's not that big of a deal. I'm okay with.
But
Playoffs,
what actually was the Atlanta viewership, right? Like, I don't know if you're actually maintaining momentum, because Atlanta itself doesn't feel like it was like I gotta watch this event. You know?
No, and I'm not saying, I get what you're saying. We're going to see a decline from the first race to the second. Like, Daytona is always going to have the highest viewership. But if we can curb that just a little bit, I feel like 5% is worth it.
I don't think we're going to curb it 5%.
Do you think it's going to get, do you think it's going to get worse?
No, I don't think it's going to get worse. I think it's going to be the same old shit.
It's going to be the same. No matter what race you put there, it's going to be the same.
How does the casual fan understand that Atlanta is going to be a whole lot cooler than Fontana?
If they turn into, because it's all about Rex, right? For the casual viewer, it's all about Rex.
But that's not the point. They don't know going in that there's going to be a ton of Rex. They don't know.
But okay, listen to me. So we have Daytona. Let's say we have Daytona and there's a bunch of wrecks, which excites the casual viewer, right? Mm-hmm. And then we go to Atlanta, and there's a bunch of wrecks at Atlanta.
But they don't know going into Atlanta that there will be.
But they know that there's a higher probability.
They don't know that. They're noobs. That's the audience you're trying to attract.
No, not them, not them. NASCAR executives know that there is a higher probability that there will be more wrecks at Atlanta than there would be at Fontana.
Sure.
Which, if there is...
Which I disagree with, because Fontana had like 12 cautions each of the last 2 years.
Exactly. But if that does happen, if there's a big wreck at Atlanta, that is going to increase viewership in the third race, which would be Las Vegas.
But why wouldn't Fontana do that, having 2 wild races the last 2 years?
Because they don't. It's not the big super speedway wrecks. It's not the 10, 15 car pileups.
When has Atlanta had any massively big pileups?
They don't. But having the possibility of a huge pileup is higher at Atlanta than it would be at Fontana. Fontana only had that pileup this year on the restart, which was just. It was weird. That typically
and that's more than Atlanta has had in 4 races in the next gen car.
True, yeah. But as far as just overall racing, close racing, and
no, I agree with that. I don't know. I
understand their thinking for it. I honestly understand their thinking for it.
I don't think it's gonna. I will make a bet that it doesn't significantly increase growth.
I don't think it will, but I understand their thinking of it, of how it could. And I kind of applaud that aspect of the schedule change. Also, I don't think there's going to be a big difference between running Atlanta at race 5 as opposed to running Atlanta at race 2.
That's what I said. Like, I don't think there's a big difference, whether it's Fontana or Atlanta or, Kansas or Vegas or who the hell knows. Mm-hmm. But the worst part of this schedule, how bad the schedule, I mean, there's so many bad things about the schedule. But North Wilkesboro being repaved as the All-Star race, that's going to be terrible. I know I've whined about it with people preemptively saying this is going to be terrible or this is going to be horrible, bad decision by NASCAR, and then not. But I just feel like North Wilkesboro is actually going to be terrible. So if I'm wrong, please throw it in my face. Please throw it in my face.
The biggest thing for me with next year's schedule is the playoff first round. That is so bad.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. We need to go 4-3-2-1 next year.
Yeah,
I have no doubt about it in my mind that 4-3-2-1 is going to be the solution to the schedule we've been given.
What's that thing that people like to put in their Twitter bio that they're part of, the NASCAR Fan Council?
Fan Council? Oh, God.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes you special.
Here's a suggestion for the NASCAR Fan Council people. Suggest the 4-3-2-1 format for next year because it would make the most sense.
They're not going to do it after I just made fun of them for being on the Fan Council.
Hey. We're all proud of something in life, but
that's true.
Yeah.
I'm proud of playing video games really fast, so I understand.
But 2024 schedule, I like that they're changing things up. I'll give them that. I don't think moving Atlanta is that bad, but yeah, that first round of the playoffs is super bad.
I don't think it's that bad. I just don't think it's going to help. I think we actually kind of made a big deal of something that's really not a big deal.
It's going to increase the chances of the exact thing that people are complaining about with this format is what it's going to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like about it. So
I agree with that.
That's where I'm at. But anything else you have with the schedule for 2024?
No.
Before we move on to the next topic?
I do not believe. I mean, they obviously announced Iowa. I think that's pretty cool. I'm all for that.
Did we talk about that last week?
Yeah, I think we did. Maybe we did.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm all for that. It's gonna be a good track if the car cooperates. That's the big question.
And I have no confidence in that.
No, I agree.
For being honest.
What race is that replacing? Oh, that's replacing Fontana.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just being moved later in the year.
And how many? That's the next question. And Pockrass brought this up on Door Bumper Clear or whatever the podcast is with Douchebag Face. He basically said, like, why would you why would you go to a track like that just to do it for 1 year or 2 years when you know you're going to go somewhere else afterwards? Which I understand that. Pockrass, he makes so many good points. He needs to be a NASCAR executive. We've already talked about he's going to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
If he's not, that's literally the worst thing of all time. He should be first ballot Hall of Famer, and I'm not joking. I'm not joking. The things he has done for NASCAR to help educate, maintain, inform the viewership, entertain them, even in recent years. He used to just be this like nerd reporter head guy who knew everything, but he's evolved from that into like entertaining, fan meetups. This whole Pockrass has evolved, and Pockrass is what is the best about NASCAR. Like, legitimately, Bob Pockrass is the best, but one of the best things that has ever happened in NASCAR, in my opinion, in the let's call it like the modern era, or maybe the 2000s, something like that.
100% agree. 100% agree. But moving on, we're gonna get to.
Does anybody disagree? Like, does anybody disagree?
I don't think anybody does.
If you think Bob Pockrass is not one of the best things for NASCAR, leave it in the comments.
If anybody disagrees, they're just a Pockrass hater.
I can't imagine being a Pockrass hater. Like he's J-Ski, but on a better, more personal, more informative, more growth, more hilarious level. It's incredible. Because you and I back in the mid late 2000s, early 10s, teens, whatever. Like J-Ski was the go-to site, right, for information, for setting our fantasy lineups, all that kind of stuff. But
then they sold.
This isn't even about setting fantasy lineups. This is just like Bob Pockrass is just a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah. But standings update. All right, Let's get to this. So, heading into the round of 8, obviously we're going to cut it down to 4 before we head to Phoenix. 3 races to do so. William Byron sitting at plus 20 on the cut line. Truex is plus 15. Hamlin plus 11. Then we got Larson at plus 3. Cut line, Buescher minus 3. Christopher Bell minus 8. Tyler Reddick minus 8. Ryan Blaney minus 10. Like I said, like we both agreed earlier in this episode, these are the, if not 8 of the 9 best drivers in the field this season. I'm just going to start it off. Who's your final 4? Because to me, Byron, Hamlin, Larson are shoo-ins.
Honestly, all 4, the top 4 are shoo-ins to me. I wouldn't say shoo-ins, but Truex, I don't understand how you can leave Truex out. I don't care about the last 7 races. You think Truex can't perform at his teammate's level? And he's ahead of his teammate right now in the standings? And he was ahead of his teammate all year? If you think Hamlin's a shoo-in, you got to think Truex is a shoo-in, in my opinion. It's not like he forgot how to drive.
That's what that was part of my whine about it in the back of my head. I don't think I actually verbalized it, but yeah, I'm right there with you. To me, Byron, Hamlin, Larson are shoo-ins, and then Truex, if he continues this, because he straight up said after Charlotte Roval this last weekend that they're just missing it on setups, which to me, looking at it, that could be a potential issue. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you missing setups this bad? That doesn't make sense to me. But there's also the aspect of, I firmly believe that they are a Joe Gibbs Racing team. I firmly believe that they're going to figure it out.
Yes.
So the only other aspect that's going to eliminate one of these 4 drivers is them not winning, obviously, and then 2, something catastrophic. So blowing a tire at Vegas, getting wrecked at Martinsville, Something like that, blowing a tire at Homestead. That is what's going to truly just eliminate these guys. But if nothing goes wrong,
or David Starr,
exactly. So if nothing goes,
David Starr might eliminate one of them, or whoever this year's David Starr is. I don't know if it's. By the way, you know how good it is to not be in the David Starr era. Like, we know Ty Dillon sucks. We know some of these back markers, these BJ McLeods, whoever's in the wear car sucks. But guess what? They're not sitting there ruining front markers races, and they're not sitting there being a gazillion miles an hour off the pace like we even had 2-3 years ago. I think that's rather impressive with this next gen car. I will say that.
I'll agree with that. But overall, unless we see which we've seen, I feel like we've seen every round, some big driver having catastrophic failure. Even Hamlin this last round, he was locked in. He still finished dead last at Charlotte Roval. To me, that's catastrophic. If he didn't have the two good races before that. But outside of that happening again, I think our Final Four is set. Like, we know who it's going to be. And I hate to sit here and be the chalk guy and be the, hey, the four best drivers are going to make it to the Final Four. But the fact of the matter is, these last 3 races, outside of, I think Tyler Reddick can win this weekend at Las Vegas. And he can obviously win at Homestead. But outside of that, I'm not sure that we're seeing a huge shift in these playoff drivers unless something completely unexpected happens that you can't call.
It just comes down to wins. Chris Buescher can win Homestead.
Yeah.
100% Chris Buescher can win Homestead.
How many laps 2 years ago at Homestead?
Yeah. Well, and RFK found something in Homestead last year. Remember that? And then, he's won a high tire race at Richmond. Michigan's a pretty big track. Could be maybe a bit similar to Las Vegas or Homestead. I don't think Chris Buescher's going out and winning Martinsville. But Blaney could.
Yeah. We've seen Penske do well there. Tyler Reddick ran well there earlier this year.
This is a really interesting round because the 4 guys that have been the 4 best this year will make it through if things go as planned and the other 4 guys don't win. But the problem is things don't always go as planned. There will be some wonky stuff that happens. Buescher, Bell, Reddick, and Blaney are all capable of winning one of these 3 races. It may be different races for different ones of these drivers, but they're all capable of winning at least one of these races in this round. I think Blaney's in the worst position because it's only Martinsville or bust for him, I think. Potentially a little bit of Las Vegas. But Homestead's never been a great track for him, and Penske's been terrible at the intermediate package this year overall, compared to other races for them. So Blaney feels like Homestead or bust. Martinsville or bust. Tyler Reddick feels like Las Vegas or Homestead or bust, especially Homestead, because he's never been great at Martinsville, even if he's getting better. Like, we have the mantra, to be good at Martinsville, first you have to be good at Martinsville, right? Like, you got to constantly get there and get there and get there to be, really good at it. Christopher Bell can win all 3 of these races. And Buescher, it feels like mostly Homestead or bust for him, as far as wins. Now, I'm not saying in terms of good performance, but as far as wins, Christopher Bell has the best opportunity to grab a win. He can win all 3 of these.
I will note, with Tyler Reddick, you said he wasn't great at Martinsville. He was pretty good at Martinsville earlier this year, though. And that's kind of what scares me. Because he finished 3rd in Stage 1, 4th in Stage 2. Finished 22nd overall in the race, but I forget what happened.
So that was the Malazzi race weekend. I was in Long Beach watching Kyle Kirkwood win, and I did not see this race at all. But from what I checked on my phone, it was really weird. It was really hard to pass. I think Corey LaJoie was up there for a bit.
Super
Ross
hard
Chastain was.
Ryan Priest could have won the race. That's how weird it was.
There was a bunch. I think Joey Logano ended up doing really well because of strategy. It's just one of those where it's just one of those where like you just need track position because it's that terrible of a race right now. Now, remember last year, the first race was terrible. The second race was much better. We may see that again. But at the same time, if you're a Tyler Reddick, a Chris Buescher, I'd much rather be good at these tracks and be one of the few that can pass here than only being able to rely on track position to win.
Yeah, that's one thing that sticks out to me. You know, Reddick's a very good qualifier, and if it comes down to him performing well at Homestead, which he obviously can, same with Las Vegas, and then he's in a position where he's points racing at Martinsville, a track where, you know, if you qualify well, you're probably going to get stage points and you stay up front all day.
Yeah.
You know, that's where, you know, the whole Reddick thing comes in.
Absolutely. I was saying as far as terms of like race wins, for me it feels like Reddick is mostly Vegas Homestead.
Yeah.
Blaney
he's not,
mostly
I don't think
Blaney it mostly feels like Martinsville. Yeah, I feel like Blaney's Martinsville or bust.
And you remember Penske sucked qualifying at Martinsville in the first race. Logano started 15th, Blaney started 31st. They both finished top 7, but it was on strategy.
Yeah.
They didn't pit that last time. That's why Logano finished 2nd. That's why Blaney finished 7th. So, yeah, that's going to be. I agree with you. I think Blaney's the easy shoe out here.
Yep.
And like you said, Christopher Bell. Like, I hate talking about Christopher Bell. I really do. He's on my dead to me list.
The dude is so weird. He won like
He's
5.
weird. That's what it is.
He won like 5 out of 11 poles heading into Talladega. He hasn't obviously won the last 2, but he always qualifies well, and then just shits the bed in the race
every time.
And it's whether it's him or his team or mechanicals or whatever, for whatever reason, the dude just can't bring it home right now.
Now,
and I don't mean like he can't bring it home and like he can't finish 3/5 whatever, but like he can't bring it home first. It feels like right now, the dude just cannot lead.
You look at his laps led this year. He led 187 laps at the second Bristol race and started on the pole. He led 100 laps at Bristol Dirt. Led 48 laps at Charlotte.
Chicago Street Course, he led the most laps, but that had rain and all sorts of weirdness.
37 laps at Chicago Street.
Out of 75, out of 75, right? Like, so let's be fair, he led like half the laps, basically.
He led 40 laps at Darlington, but he also started on the pole. He's just not. Other than that, it's 26 or less laps, and he just doesn't.
And with a lot of pole starts, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and So you look at his pole starts. He has 1, 2, 3. We're not going to count the LA Coliseum. Okay, I'm going to count the LA Coliseum. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 poles this year, including LA Coliseum. Laps led. He led 187 at Bristol. We talked about that. 40 at Darlington. 15 at Kansas, starting from the pole. 5 at the LA Coliseum, starting from the pole. 5. 1 lap at Michigan, starting from the pole. 1 lap at New Hampshire. One lap.
And New Hampshire is one of his best tracks.
1 lap at New Hampshire, starting from the pole. 1 lap at Auto Club, starting from the pole. Like, this dude, he just doesn't do it. And,
he's not
so
winning the championship.
It's so frustrating because
if he makes Phoenix,
he ain't winning it.
That's what I'm saying. So if I have bets on Truex and Byron, and Bell makes it, all I have to do is hedge one other driver, and it's not Bell.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's how I feel.
But then you're gonna Stevens is gonna come up with some stupid ass fucking pit strategy, and they're gonna steal it. Like,
yeah,
that seems to be how it happens with these guys. Like,
yeah.
Speaking, we never even got into that. That was actually a pretty good call from Stevens at Charlotte Roval. That at the end of the stage.
The first stage. He got fucked on the second stage, but yeah, because of that caution right before the stage.
That was a very good call. That was a great call.
That was a brilliant call. Good audible.
Yeah.
And I was really happy about that because obviously I had his top 10 bet, and then the fucking caution comes with like, what was it, 3 or 4 to go in the stage, and he's screwed at that point. Nothing you can do. I assumed they were going to bring him in again because it was a pretty similar situation. So, yeah, busted his top 10 chances.
Yeah.
By the way, can we give a shout out to Daniel Suarez for once again driving in over his head and wrecking Austin Cindric into Bubba Wallace, which, you know, he complains about when we're at COTA and Chase Briscoe runs into Ross Chastain, who runs into Daniel Suarez, and then he blames Ross Chastain for some reason, and Alex Bowman, I don't even know why, and then goes and wrecks him on pit road. But then he drives in over his head this past weekend at the Charlotte Roval, and nobody says a word.
Has Daniel Suarez ever been in the wrong in his own head? Ever? Name one example of him taking blame for anything.
Ross Chastain takes blame all the time. I fucked up. I went in too hard.
No,
I screwed this
Suarez.
up. I know.
Suarez.
What I'm saying, I'm saying Ross Chastain admits blame all the time. There's been, I can count 4, 5, 6 times Ross Chastain has been to blame. I can't think of one for Daniel Suarez.
And obviously, like anybody listening to this, if you know of a time that Daniel Suarez has been like,
please point it
this
out.
was
Yeah.
my fault. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I do not remember a single time that this guy has ever been like, this is my fault.
But my point was, like, there's Ross Chastain haters out there, Jordan. But at least you can even admit it's more about the hype around him, that stuff, versus, like, the wrecks and stuff. Some of them have been his fault, and he's admitted fault. And some of them have just absolutely not been his fault, and people blame him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I actually feel like Ross is really, like, straight shooter. Like, he'll admit when he fucks up, and he'll be like, that was just hard racing or whatever when it was hard racing, right? You know, when Noah Gragson approaches him and gives him shit, and then he just socks him in the face. I'm cool with that. Yeah, I don't know. I like Ross Chastain for who he is. I agree he's maybe overhyped as far as, like, you know, this dude's Dale Earnhardt 2.0 or whatever, that shit, mid-season champion. But I fully believe Ross kind of tells it like it is as far as on track. But I don't think Daniel Suarez does. I don't know. I can't remember the last time Daniel Suarez said he was wrong about something.
And I also think like a big aspect of Daniel Suarez is he also doesn't have the finishes to back it up, whereas Chastain more likely has the finishes. Because you look at the last 20 races, Daniel Suarez has 1, 2, 3, 4 top 10s?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Like, Daniel Suarez just isn't good. Like, I don't care what you say. You could never convince me that Daniel Suarez is a good driver. Ever.
He's not. He's not. I mean, compare him to his teammates in every single car he's ever been in where he's had a teammate.
Yeah.
Same with Ty Dillon,
That's it.
right? Same with Austin Dillon. I mean, there's certain drivers that are just, you compare them to their teammates and they always get obliterated.
Speaking of Ty Dillon, we didn't talk about this, but news broke today. We all knew it was going to happen, but Carson Hocevar will be in that 77 car for Spire Motorsports. Good move, necessary move. What
Carson
are you thinking
Hocevar is so talented, but man, he's getting better about it, but he needs to, again, cool his temper, not in terms of like physical fights, but just on track. Right rear hook somebody, right rear hook somebody, right rear hook somebody. He's essentially Ross 2.0, but makes even more dirty moves than Ross. Like intentionally. Like Ross, I feel like Ross races hard, but he doesn't go and intentionally wreck somebody. He might race the shit out of them and cause the wreck, but Ross isn't sitting there intentionally wrecking somebody.
Has Hocevar done that recently?
The last time he did it was the Malazzi race, which was Martinsville earlier this year. But that was like his third time, and he hasn't done it recently, to his credit. But boy, he needs to step it up because he is immensely talented, and I'm very high on Hocevar as a potential talent. But I think he's still really young. And he still has a lot of learning to do. and he's done a great job in the Cup Series this year for the races he's raced. He's done fantastic. I can't commend him enough. Obviously, there was the Talladega deal where, Keselowski pushed him and spun him out, and everybody was saying, well, Hocevar couldn't hold a straight wheel. He'll learn that stuff. But at least Hocevar wasn't sitting there creating wrecks, right, at Talladega. He got wrecked, probably because he maybe made a bad move, but it was nothing malicious. Even Keselowski, who spun Hocevar and who ultimately the fault probably lies with Keselowski for pushing a car that was all over the place as aggressively as he did, said, that's just something I should have done better on, and he didn't do anything technically wrong, that kind of stuff. So Hocevar has absolutely proven himself through the 6 or so races he's raced at the Cup level as far as can he cut it at this level. Absolutely. I just definitely think more seasoning could be in order for him. We've seen time and again drivers jump up too early and it swallows them up, especially when they go to maybe smaller teams and they never recover.
Mm-hmm. And you bring up, him right hooking people. Obviously, like, it hasn't happened since then, but as he gets more comfortable in the Cup Series, he's going to be full-time Cup Series.
And they're going to rough him up.
Exactly. And it does that. Obviously, it's still going to be there, and it's going to be one of those things where you just have to wait and see whether it happens again.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully he understands that you can't do that, but it's going to be it's going to be a very similar Chastain issue, because the first time he does it, it's going to be like, this is who he is, you know, and you don't want that. You do not want that reputation following you. So hopefully he just calms that a bit.
Yeah, I want him to succeed. I
don't want him to lose the personality, though.
I agree. I think he's great. He's awesome for the sport. I want him to succeed. I just worry it's too soon. That's my main concern. Is I worry it's too soon with Carson Hocevar.
Because he hasn't. I don't think has he even made an Xfinity start ever.
He has 5 Xfinity races run. He has finished in the top 10 twice. As far as Xfinity, he started once for SS Greenlight Racing at COTA earlier this year, and that car is not good. But his other 4 Xfinity starts this year, he had 2 top 10s, a DNF at Nashville, and I don't remember what happened at Michigan, but he finished 32nd, so I'm assuming something happened there as well. But the kid's
who did he race for?
Talented.
He ran the
Spire.
The 77 car. 77.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 4 of the 5, he raced the Spire 77.
Okay.
There's a lot of really interesting stuff around Spire. Obviously, they bought Kyle Busch Motorsports, so they'll be running in the Truck Series 3 trucks, I think it is, next year, and Kyle Busch is going to run for them in 5 races. Spire has that sponsorship with Gainbridge. Gainbridge sponsors Colton Herta for Andretti Autosport in the IndyCar Series, and Andretti Global has now provisionally, I guess, kind of been accepted into Formula One. So there's a lot of Andretti is becoming a global brand. I do firmly believe Andretti, Spire down the road form some kind of partnership to get Andretti into NASCAR as well. So there's a lot of reason to, if you are Hocevar, to jump ship now ahead of time, even though I believe it's too young, to get yourself exposed to bigger teams, the Hendrick Motorsports, the whatever's, especially if you're a Chevy guy, but also in case Spire continues to grow and get support from Andretti, which has tons of money, you secure your future even just within the team for a team that could potentially still be growing. So it's a really interesting situation. He's 2 years and a half or so, 3 years maybe later than Joey Logano joining the Cup Series, and certainly Joey jumped too early. Took him a long time to season, but then obviously became a 2-time NASCAR champion once he moved to Penske, etc. But I do worry. I mean, there's a lot of stories of young drivers just straight up flopping. Casey Atwood, prime example. Everybody was so high on him, and then he just flamed out after 3 or 4 years and never achieved the potential that he had, because I feel, another one that I feel like he jumped up too early. So a lot of moving parts and pieces. It's going to be interesting to see how the global landscape of motorsports develops over the coming years.
It's gonna, like you said, it's gonna come down a lot to what Spire can do, because they have what they have, LaJoie, Hocevar, and Zane Smith. They have
that's a stellar lineup.
That is a very good lineup.
A very, I'll say
high
it's a stellar lineup. Yes, high potential. Stellar as in high potential. I agree with that. Obviously, LaJoie has never been on a big team outside of one race. And Zane and Hocevar are young, and Zane is kind of on like a futures contract, essentially with Trackhouse. But there's a ton of potential, even with LaJoie. And LaJoie's going to be the experienced team leader. Very curious about the dynamics next year on that team, and what they can accomplish. And I'm glad LaJoie, I believe, signed a multi-year extension. So he's going to have multiple years to help develop and grow this team, right? Because 1 year with Zane and Hocevar may not be enough. And he may only have 1 year with Zane because Zane may end up replacing Suarez after next year, 2024 into 2025. But the point is to have multiple years to help develop Hocevar as well and develop that chemistry could be massive. And there's no guarantee Hocevar is there for multiple years, but you get the point. Like, this team is going places. It's not a situation where they're doing all this expanding, buying Kyle Busch Motorsports just to flame out. They're investing for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing, just looking at their Cup Series next season is how does that power dynamic work? Because best case scenario, Corey LaJoie is trying to mentor these guys and get them into, like season them.
Mm-hmm.
But when does the personalities take over? When does hey, we're better drivers than you take over? And does that become an issue?
But are they? Like, I don't even know they're better drivers than Corey LaJoie. When has Corey LaJoie ever been in good equipment? Besides one race where that was totally not his fault. Like, Corey LaJoie might be the best Cup driver right now. And so you're right with the power dynamic where it's like Zane and Hocevar are like, well, we're better drivers than you. But maybe it's Corey LaJoie being like, why am I mentoring these kids? I'm the better driver right now. I don't think it's going to blow up in their faces. But there's a
possibility that
there's certainly an opportunity, for that to happen. I think there's a lot of hype, a lot of potential, a lot of excitement, and I think it's all around. I think Corey LaJoie is excited. There's a reason he signed a multi-year extension. He's excited. He doesn't want to be doing it because he's... And I'm sure he was informed of the potential plan before he signed the extension as well, right? Like, he's buying in.
If you remember back when they announced that Corey LaJoie signed the multi-year extension, we're like, why the fuck did this happen? Everybody was like, what is, like, Spire has to be doing something, but nothing was announced at that point.
Yeah.
And now it all makes sense because all the pieces are in place. We know everything now. It makes 100% sense. Will the results follow? Will
TBD,
another the final aspect of that is everybody's going to expect results next year. Will they come next year? And that is a very tall task to expect of a team like Spire.
Honestly,
Motorsports.
I think if they have the year they had this year, that's a success. Corey LaJoie has had a great year. It's not so much in the playoffs. Not so much. It's not been great for him, other than Talladega, which is Talladega. The playoffs have been terrible for him. Honestly, actually, the second half of the year has been terrible for him since like almost halfway through the season. Atlanta, if we look at that, the second Atlanta race, he has 5 top 20 finishes in 14 races. Whereas before that, it was, half of the races were top 20 finishes or so.
So here's a question for you. How does this compare to Red Bull Racing, who they had 2-3 Cup Series wins?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the same scenario? Are
No.
they a Red Bull Racing where if they get 2 to 3 wins, it looks like a victory for this organization.
You mean in a year or overall ever?
Overall, in the next 3 years, let's say they average 1 win a year over the next 3 years.
Okay, that's a better question because I would say 2 or 3 years is definitely a victory. Overall, no, I firmly believe there's some plan in place with Andretti Autosport. I firmly believe this team is going places, buying Kyle Busch Motorsports, etc. I think in the immediate future, though, you're not competing with a Hendricks. You're not competing with Penske, Joe Gibbs, right? Like it's not in the cards. If you are a legacy motor club or last year Petty and you grab 1 or 2 wins with Eric Jones, that's a massive year. That is what would be a massive year for Spire in the next 3 years. Grabbing 1 win. Even 1 win per year. Even 1 win per year would be massive. What was that?
Non-super speedway, right?
Just in general. I mean, I don't even care if it's super speedway or not. Just grabbing, like, you think about front row motorsport, you know, when was their first win? I think it was 2013 with David Reagan, right? At Talladega. That was massive for them. I mean, that's huge. It was monstrous. But now look where they are a decade later. That's where Spire is. If they grab a win, that's going to be their second, I guess. Kind of with premium with Justin Haley. I think they became Spire or whatever. But you get the point. Like, it'll be technically their first when they grab a win. That's going to be monstrous for them. But it could take them a decade to become a team that gets 2 or 3 more wins.
So, all right. What do you think is a successful season out of Spire next year?
It's a great question.
Not just wins, but like, you think a few top 5s?
No, I think a successful season comes down to a few different criteria. Either a win, which, if it's in the regular season, gets your driver in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or, if your win's in the playoffs, that's a success as well. So any win.
Okay.
Any win is successful. Getting a driver inside the top 20 in points is also a success, in my opinion, if you don't get a win. Because you have 3 of them.
Okay. So they are Kaulig Racing next year.
Yes, they are. Absolutely, they're Kaulig Racing. I don't see any reason to believe otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And all intents and purposes, Kaulig Racing is having a successful season.
Well, last year Kaulig was better.
Allmendinger has the win, and he's about to be top 20 in points.
Technically, I think last year Kaulig was like better outside of the Dinger having a full-time ride this year, and there was like a split for that second ride or whatever it was. But like Haley, I think, has had a worse year this year. But I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, I think a successful year for them, I might even be too aggressive with top 20. Like maybe a top 24 finish or something like that with one of the drivers. But honestly, the way Carson Hocevar has performed, he could finish top 20 in the standings if he just does that consistent thing. I just worry, in his he's not going to be with with Legacy like he is now. He's going to be with Spire, but like he's been very consistent in his time with Legacy. But that was part of proving himself. I think now that he has a guaranteed ride, there's more potential for him to be less consistent and more aggressive. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He doesn't have to worry about proving himself, losing a ride, whatever, this, that, the other. So I actually expect a little bit of a downgrade for him. So it's tough to say. I honestly think that Spire has a ton of potential, but I don't think it's next year. I think it's like 2-3 years down the road is where I'm looking for the realized potential.
One, yes, Justin Haley downgrade this year. Even though he has more top 10s this year than last year, 6 this year compared to 4 last year. His average finish this year is 20.4 compared to 18.4 last year. So two positions worse. Also 2 positions exactly worse in average starting position. 22.1 last year, 24.1 this year. points ranking, he's 22nd last year, 25th this year. By the way, for those watching on YouTube, if you notice me take a drink and notice it wasn't open because I grabbed the wrong one.
I love
I'm
this.
a fucking idiot.
It's the blooper reel.
Yeah, right. But we are an hour and 25 minutes into this episode. We haven't even talked about Las Vegas. So
That's how we know it's a good episode. There's a lot to talk about, dude. There's so much to talk about. Like, I know you were excited for this, even without. I literally haven't talked to you all week, but I knew you were excited for this episode just because I could tell from what happened this past weekend, from your getting into these bets. Just, I don't know. I think we both feel the energy this week, and we literally haven't even talked Las Vegas yet. My hometown, like my home race.
It is a different vibe this weekend, and I'm excited for it. But
let's go.
Second race at Las Vegas this year. First race was won by William Byron. Second place, Kyle Larson. Larson probably should have won that race. You remember there was a late restart there. Byron took it, although Byron did lead the most laps. He led 176
both stages.
of the 176 of the 271, starting second. So it was a Hendrick Motorsports 1-2-3. The only Hendrick car that was not good that race was Chase Elliott. He did not have the speed. But it was Byron, Larson, Bowman, Bubba Wallace, who we're going to talk about here soon. Christopher Bell rounding out the top five. Then we got Cindric, Truex, Haley, Kevin Harvick, Daniel Suarez for the top 10 at Las Vegas. Las Vegas, as we've talked about before, it's not a low, it is considered a low wear track for most people, but is a mid to high wear track, comparatively speaking, for a lot of the mile and a halves. Best comparison, Kansas Speedway. Also throwing in, if you want to throw in the low wear tracks, you got Charlotte this year, you have Texas this year, the two races at Kansas, and the previous race at Las Vegas. That's 5 races for us to look at. What other is there any other track that you're looking at when it comes to Las Vegas and comps?
Probably
outside
of Charlotte.
Kansas.
Probably throwing out Charlotte. Honestly, like for me, Kansas. Obviously, Kansas and Las Vegas. Like those two are so close to each other. And you have to kind of bring in Texas just because it's recent. But you know, those are kind of what I look at. I'm mostly just throwing out Charlotte. I mostly just look at Kansas and Las Vegas. That's the highest correlation of any two tracks in the whole series. It's Kansas and Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I gravitate. I mean, you see the same guys always pop up at Kansas as they do at Las Vegas. It may be a few others at Kansas versus Las Vegas and vice versa. You know, Bubba always seems to do a little better at Kansas than Las Vegas. Not that he's bad at Las Vegas by any means, but just slightly better at Kansas. Or a guy like Joey Logano always does slightly better at Las Vegas. Those kinds of things. But Kansas and Las Vegas. We can bring in recent Texas stuff because, it's recent. Maybe potentially you could look at like similar tire tracks, whatever, but I'm not really bringing in Auto Club from the second race of the year into this. So for me, it's Kansas, Las Vegas, maybe throw in a little Texas from recently, which I think is important. Certainly think is important, especially as we talk about a guy I bet on. But Kansas, Las Vegas, and you mentioned Las Vegas earlier this year. Yeah, you know, Kyle Larson, you said probably maybe should have won. He definitely was best in flags. William Byron was second in flags. Alex Bowman was third in flags. So definitely the top 3. Fourth in flags, Martin Truex Jr. He finished 7th. Fifth in flags, Bubba Wallace finished 4th. Sixth in flags, Denny Hamlin finished 11th. So the top 6 were 3 Hendrick Motorsports drivers, and then 3 Toyotas. 7th was Ross Chastain, who's been eliminated from the playoffs. 8th and 9th were 2 more Toyotas, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick. And 10th was Ross Chastain's teammate, Daniel Suarez. So the top 10 were essentially 3 teams. If we count 2311 JGR as 1 team, the top 10 was 3 teams. Kyle Busch was 11th. Kevin Harvick was 12th. Brad Keselowski was 13th. Ryan Blaney was 14th. So you got to just look at those big three teams and maybe downgrade Trackhouse a little bit. So it's essentially a Hendrick versus Toyota battle, I think, this weekend.
Here's the
That's
thing.
what we saw at Kansas. It's what we mostly saw at Texas. Not completely, but mostly.
Here's the thing. Mile and a half this year, we know who's fast.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't rocket science. We know who's fast. It has been the same cars every single race, for the most part. Outside of crazy tire happenings or something weird happening. It's been these same drivers. So when it comes to early week bets, Bubba Wallace is sitting there at plus 100 for a top 10 this week. He opened on Superbook in Ohio at 30 to 1. I know he's already down to 20 to 1. I did not hit him at 30 to 1. I understand that his track record at Las Vegas is not good. He has two top 10 finishes and 11 starts here. This might be my favorite bet of the year. I am so excited about this bet. Bubba Wallace top 10 plus 100. Slam it. That is my only recommendation this week. I am so on board with this bet. It's not even funny. And I don't care if I'm like overhyping this. Fact of the matter is, every single similar race that we talked about, Bubba Wallace has had legitimate top 5 speed, including if you want to throw in Charlotte, which I still throw in Charlotte a little bit. Remember, he started in the back of the field in that race. He still had top 5 speed.
Yeah.
In that race.
No, the only reason I'm not like super considering Charlotte is night race. You know, Ford was a lot better. Ryan Blaney dominated. We're not going to see that here, right? Like, if you think Ryan Blaney's going to dominate, Ryan Blaney's good at Vegas. But if you think he's going to dominate this race and be one of the best, that I don't see that happening, because Charlotte was East Coast, humid, night, steeper bank, like all this stuff that is not Vegas. Low humidity, hot, daytime, you know, lower bank. Like, it's not, I just don't think it's going to be a Penske race. So there's different tires, right? Like different, I think it was right or left side tires, or maybe both. I don't even remember. I honestly haven't done the work to care, because I just kind of like mentally remember other things about these things. The tires don't matter to me. But if this is just going to be a Toyota and Hendrick race, and Bubba Wallace consistently is a top 10 car at Kansas and Las
Top 5.
I'm being conservative because you bet top 10. He is consistently a top 10 car at Kansas and Las Vegas in the next gen car for 2311. And pushing top 5. Not every race is he top 5 in the next gen car at Kansas and Las Vegas, but very damn close to it. Right?
Just looking at this year.
If he's 6th in one of those races, it's still top 10.
just looking at this year, all right? 4th.
That's why I said
Vegas.
the next gen the car, though, because I'm talking the 4 races last year and the 3 races this year at these 2 tracks.
Accurate. But man, this is.
No, I agree.
I feel like this is. Yeah, I feel like this is a classic example of books being like.
This is
so
my new
low.
favorite playoff bet.
Yeah.
Remember Chris Bell top 10 even money was last week, but it's my new favorite playoff bet is Bubba Wallace top 10 even money, and he'll somehow finish 11th or 12th
I was
or
gonna
something.
say, no, we're not saying that. We're not saying that, because I was just about to say, like, I'm knocking on wood, because this is like a similar situation of Blaney at Martinsville 2 years ago,
Or
where
Christopher
I'm like,
Bell last weekend, or this, that, or the
fuck
other.
Christopher Bell. Fuck Christopher Bell.
Fuck Brian Blaney. I wasn't on that Blaney top 10.
Oh man. But anyway, I feel like it is so like these races.
I think I was on that Ryan Blaney top 10. but I think it was only for 1 unit.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting there at fucking 15 units on it, just
I know.
riding life. But
Hey, I like pushing an edge. I agree.
we know who's going to be fast here. It's going to be Larson. It's going to be Byron. It's going to be Hamlin. What do we think about a guy like Tyler Reddick, though? Because my early numbers really like Tyler Reddick this week.
He's such an enigma. He's always an enigma.
And that's what's exactly. But like, if he doesn't have any issues, this is a great track type for him. And I feel like he can pull it off. And I hate that he's only sitting there at 8-1. I wish he was sitting there at 10-1. I have exclusively become a top 10 bettor. I don't really like betting outrights anymore. But if Reddick would be out there at 10-1 or longer, I'd hit him. But I'm not. But I really like Reddick this week. I think that's
what is it that you really like about Reddick based off what he's done at Vegas and Kansas this year?
He won Kansas, didn't he?
Yes, but Vegas won 10th in flags, I think it was, whatever I just said, and Kansas won 8th in flags. So he's been like a back half of top 10 outside of winning Kansas 2. And at Kansas 2, he was like a 5th place car for most of that race.
Yet he had the second best driver rating.
Yeah.
Outside of Hamlin, who led 63 laps.
But that's because of the last stage.
But Reddick only led 2 laps that race, and he still had the second best driver rating.
Yeah. It's fair. But it's one race.
Correct. Let me pull up something real quick. The overall, like, who was?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just making you think. Because if we look at Texas, right? Like, if we look at Texas, he won a stage as well. He finished 25th, which is not representative of how he ran. But he won stage 1 at Texas, and then had some issues or whatever. So
I feel
last
like
car in the lead lap.
I feel like it for me. It's Hamlin, Larson, Byron. Like, those 3 are the top 3 this week. There's no what.
I agree
disagree
with that.
Okay.
The only disagreement, I might throw Bubba Wallace in the top 3, honestly.
Yeah,
Legitimately might throw Bubba Wallace in the top 3.
You could, definitely. But
I'm not joking. Like, I legitimately might throw Bubba Wallace in the top 3
like I said,
off
he opened 30 30-1 at Sportsbook or Superbook. And
Yeah.
I'm pissed at myself for not betting that. But just overall, like, you look at, like, if you do a heat map of green flag speed, average running position of these similar tracks, the drivers that are consistently at the top are Hamlin, Byron, Larson. Okay? So I feel like Nick. So I feel like we don't need to talk about those guys. So then I get to the second tier, which I love Bubba Wallace this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bet365 still has Bubba Wallace at plus 100 for top 10 right now. And if I have a couple more drinks, I might unload my entire bank account on this. This is how much I love.
That sounds great. Let's do that.
You want a shotgun? You want a shotgun with me?
Yeah. Well, I just opened. This is the last drink I have here. But I think unloading on Bubba. Like, and responsible gaming, right? Like, don't be irresponsible, but responsible for me and Jordan is different than responsible for other people. But I can afford to throw a good damn chunk on Bubba Wallace at even money.
But this is how confident we are in this. Is Bubba Wallace top 10. Okay, it's those 3, then Bubba Wallace, and I feel like Reddick's right there with Bubba.
I feel like Reddick's actually
and that's why I like Bubba Wallace.
I feel like Reddick's a step behind Bubba.
Really?
I know he won Kansas. I do. But I legitimately think he's not a step, like, not like a massive step, but like the tiniest step behind Bubba. But to your point, it doesn't matter. We're like nitpicking.
Right.
Like, Ty Gibbs is a top 10 car, right? He should be.
Should be. Well, he's had his struggles finishing top 10 on a lot. Let's say that.
Yeah.
On pure speed, yes, he is a top 10 car.
Right.
On actually getting there,
that's a different story.
He hasn't. Yeah.
But like Bubba Wallace is like he's not going out and wrecking Kyle Larson, or on purpose and getting in a fight in the infield this year. That's what happened last year at this race.
Right. Yeah.
He's not doing that. That's just not happening again. So, I mean, it's like, if you want to talk about as sure a bet as you can have in terms of raw speed, it doesn't mean the result will be there, but in terms of raw speed, I would lay 12-1. So minus 1,200, right? I would lay that he is a top 10 car in speed, in flags. And, obviously things can happen where it gets damaged or this, that, or the other. But as far as like actual true speed, I would lay 12-1 minus 1,200 that he is a top 10 car on speed.
Are you just trying to talk me into betting more on Bubba Wallace this week?
Yes. Absolutely, 100% yes.
Have you hit this bet yet?
I have not, but I'm about to.
Have you...
Dude!
What?
I bet Chandler Stevenson to score the first goal for the Vegas Golden Knights, and he scored the first goal. Let's go.
Very nice. What was the odds?
Sorry. 9-1, something like that. Let's go. I don't remember. I don't know. Yeah. But it's the debut of the hockey season. I'm literally recording the podcast while the Vegas Golden Knights are making their season debut, NHL's season starting, defending their Stanley Cup championship. They're playing the Seattle Kraken, which is an important rivalry. And Chandler, my buddy Chandler, scores the first goal of the game.
That's awesome. Oh yeah.
Last year, I won a massive bet betting on Chandler Stevenson. I almost say Chandler Smith, right? If I say Chandler Smith, I mean Chandler Stevenson.
Every time you keep saying Chandler, I keep thinking Chandler Smith.
Yeah, because NASCAR, NHL, Chandlers. But I had this issue earlier. I was doing Bet What Happens Live for Action Network for Monday Night Football, and the Green Bay Packers have a Jordan Love as the quarterback, and there's that NASCAR driver, Jesse Love, who races sometimes in the Xfinity or Truck Series, ARCA mostly. And they have an A.J. Dillon, so A. Dillon. I'm like Austin Dillon, right? So I keep screwing up the names on the live show. So if I said Chandler Smith instead of Chandler Stevenson, it's the same damn thing. By the way, there is a K. Kirkwood in the NFL. There is a Keith Kirkwood. And you all know, if you're watching on YouTube, Kyle Kirkwood is literally my favorite driver of all time. Even more than Jeff Gordon. Even more than Greg Moore. Literally my favorite driver of all time. But there's a K. Kirkwood in the NFL. But yeah. There's a D. Hamlin. DeMar Hamlin, the guy who had the cardiac arrest on the field when he got hit in the chest.
The guy who might actually be dead?
No, he's not actually dead. Let's dispel that myth. But there's a Jay Johnson, Juwan Johnson, right? Jimmy Johnson. There's Josh Gordon, who is Jeff Gordon. The NFL and NASCAR have a lot of similarities in names. But anyway, what were we talking about?
Good question.
Oh, Chandler scored. I think he was. Oh, it was my bet last year. It was in the playoffs, and I bet Chandler Stevenson to score the game-winning goal in overtime. So not just the game-winning goal, not just any goal, not just the anytime goal scored, but the game-winning goal in overtime. At 250-1 and hit it.
Fuck yeah.
And I was at that game. So the only two sporting events I've attended all year, I don't know if you've attended much this year, Jordan, but in 2023, I've only attended two sporting events. Kyle Kirkwood winning Long Beach, and I bet that it won $25,000. And Chandler Stevenson for the Vegas Golden Knights playoff game, I won $25,000. So I need to go to more of the story. I need to go to more sporting events.
No shit. Jesus. God.
I was texting. So Action Network, obviously we cover all the sports, but there's a guy named Nick, not me, but Nick Martin. And I was literally texting with him before the game, and I was like, what should I bet? And he's like, well, what about this? What about that? He asked me, like, well, what about the three-way puck line? And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. He's like, well, okay, win, lose, or overtime. I'm like, okay, well, here's the win, lose, or overtime odds. He goes, bet overtime. And I'm like, all right, I'm betting overtime. And I'm betting Chandler Stevenson to score because my cat is named Chandler. My girlfriend's cat, but my cat is named Chandler. And he goes, well, why don't you just parlay that? So I did.
God. Because why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there it is.
Jeez. All right, getting back on track here. Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
I hope y'all are enjoying. This has been a hell of an episode.
Right. But one thing we saw with Las Vegas earlier this year was Byron led 176 of the 271 laps. We have not really seen that. We have not seen that kind of domination on the mile and a halves with this car. Do you think that is that a Las Vegas thing, or was that just a small sample size, one race thing? In other words, do you think we see that again this week, where we see one good car lead a shit ton of laps, or not? Because
I don't think so.
Like obviously, like Kansas, Texas, everything else, we saw a bunch of leaders. We saw it was a pretty even race.
Yeah.
And it came down to track position at the end and everything else, which Las Vegas, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Las Vegas didn't come down to track position. That's why Byron won.
Right.
Was because in the race, he had a better restart than Larson. He grabbed the...
It's funny, we applaud the mile and a half racing with this package, with this car. But at the end of the day, it comes down to track position, right? Like, if you're the leader, it's still hard to pass. But we have seen it, all of these mile and a halves. You can pass for the lead. You can pass through the field. That's why we're excited about this package. That's why we're excited about this race. So to your point, I think I got to go with the larger average. I think we're probably going to see multiple different leaders. We're going to see some incidents. We're going to see some people pushing various agendas. It's going to be a fun race. I really think it's going to be a fun race. And I'm not going to say it's going to be a highly random race. I think it's going to be a fun race. I think there'll be a curveball or two in the race.
Which obviously, if we have curveballs, it's not predictable at all. But and hopefully that curveball doesn't hit Bubba Wallace, because we know my position on that. But we did not get into your bet, by the way, for Vegas, because like we talked about, like, I'm so high on Bubba Wallace. What's your bet for this weekend?
I mean,
I don't even know. I don't think I know it.
No, you don't. I haven't told anyone. I took Eric Jones 80-1 to win the race. And the only reason is because he was a top 5 car at Kansas and a top 5 car at Texas. Those are the two most recent mile and a halves. And he was 17th in flags at the first Vegas race this year, but that doesn't account for how much this team has improved at this track type in recent races. And he opened 75-1 elsewhere, got bet down to 60, and was still 80 at Westgate Superbook. When I saw the fact that he'd already gotten bet down from 75 to 60 at other books. So took him 80-1 at Superbook. I believe he's down to 40 right now at Superbook. I need to check, but I 100% have the screenshot. $30 on him at 80-1. Which is 0.15 units for me, but I couldn't track it in the app because it wasn't set up yet. But let me check Circa real quick. I want to see if Circa has odds up. They do. I figure with Vegas, everybody would have odds up early. So Circa, Eric Jones, 50-1 to win. And Superbook, pulling that back up now. Eric Jones is 60-1 to win. So definitely got some value there as far as where he is now. But we're talking, like, people are really excited, and this is kind of a half whine about it. People are really excited about all the offerings that the books are having for this race. You know, they're looking at it and they're like, most laps led by a driver, driver to lead a lap, average speed of a race, all these, like at Caesars, for example, drivers not completing 133 laps. These are awesome markets. They're fantastic markets, and we can do so many more markets. But you know why they're doing this? Is because it's the Vegas race.
Yeah.
Because it's in Vegas, the race, and all these books originating these lines are based in Las Vegas. And then it translates to the outside of Vegas ones as well. You know who's not posting these lines? Books that aren't based in Vegas. What kind of cool ass lines does DraftKings have? None. Because they don't operate in Vegas.
When's the last time that they had a cool ass line?
But you get my point. Like, if you're gonna post a cool ass line, it's gonna be for this race.
Yeah.
And well, they aren't. FanDuel hasn't posted odds yet. Period. Outside of outrights and their standard props, which is fine. But I was hoping maybe they'd have something else. But it's the same as DraftKings. They're standard shit at this point in the week. And I'm not complaining like standard shit or whatever, but like NASCAR has made a big deal of this partnership with FanDuel for next year. FanDuel's not offering anything new. Anything. Nothing.
Speaking of FanDuel, quick, I'm just looking at their top 10 odds. They have Reddick at minus 20,000 for top 10.
Yeah. minus so 200-1 to finish in the top 10, not 200-1, but like 1 to 200, if you know what I mean. Like, he's favored 200-1 to finish.
Somebody
in the top 10.
fat finger the fuck out of that, right?
Can I get a no on that?
Like, no shit. Give me the other side of that.
What the fuck?
But
I'm tweeting this right now. I don't give a fuck. I'm tweeting this right now.
But hey, Bet365 has Bubba Wallace 9-1 top Toyota.
Sorry, I'm just tweeting. Can I get a no price? Bubba Wallace, what'd you say Bet365 has?
9-1 top Toyota.
What the fuck?
Why are people devaluing Bubba this week? I don't like. I feel like there's something that I'm missing. There has to be something I'm missing. There has to be, right?
You think?
9-1,
You would definitely think.
And they have Ty Gibbs 12-1. Like I'd hit that too. Like, this makes no sense to me.
No, makes none.
Not to
no
mention
sense.
Okay, they just Bet365 just released their poll odds. I know you hate betting on the poll. Bubba Wallace 18-1. Why am I not betting Bubba Wallace 18-1 to win the poll?
I honestly haven't looked at poll odds because I never do outside of a couple random races. But now I'm intrigued. I don't necessarily think it's a good bet, honestly, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad bet. I just don't know. I gotta see. This is why y'all listen to Stacking Dennys, because Jordan and I just randomly think, and right now it's Jordan. To be fair, we just randomly think of these like bets to look at. So Bubba Wallace won the poll at Texas. At Kansas, he started 10th. And I think there was some kind of issue or deal or whatever there. He started 7th at Charlotte. And earlier this year at Vegas started 13th. So, like, I don't know about 15-1. It's close.
18-1.
18-1? Whatever it is. It's close. There's probably some value there.
I feel like
I care much more about long run speed or full race speed than a single lap. I have such a hard time betting pole bets. It's one thing when it's Riley Herbst and he's clearer than a Stewart Haas car and they price him like he's in a Rick Ware car. That's different, than should Bubba Wallace be 8-1 or 12-1 or 15-1 kind of deal. Which, don't get me wrong, is still a significant change in probability, but it's a bigger change in probability than a guy who's 125, 150, 100-1, who should be 12-1.
I hate how high I am on Bubba Wallace this week.
I don't. I
It's
legitimately
bugging
don't
me.
hate. I mean, look.
Because,
Let's just look real quick. Let's just look at the top 10 odds at Bet365. Bubba Wallace comes in 13th in top 10 odds, and he has been a top 6, 7, 8 at worst car in every single one of these races. At least, if not this year, through most of last year as well in Vegas and Kansas.
Yeah, he led 29 laps in the second Vegas race last year, and accident is the reason.
Yeah, and he had that deal with Larson.
He won Kansas. Like,
fuck it, sign me up. I'm all in on Bubba top 10.
To me, this is easy money. This is book sleeping.
Easy money, as in it is a incredibly plus EV value bet. It obviously doesn't guarantee anything, but
Like
I agree. This is a highly plus EV bet.
And like Bet365, like I said, offering top 10 Bubba Wallace at plus 100. They're offering Bubba Wallace top 5 at plus 300. Like, to me, that's a hit too. Like, man. Another one I like, who has a very good track record here at Vegas, Alex Bowman.
Mm-hmm.
Top 10, you can get him at, I believe you can get him at plus 140 is the best out there, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Plus 145 at, yeah.
Plus 125 at Bet365, but I think plus 140 is the best out there. I hit him this past weekend for the top 10 finish.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we're talking about it, it just comes down to Hendrick and Toyota. You got to think he's a top 10 car. You're right. I think books are sleeping a little this weekend. I think the Eric Jones 80-1 is a little mispriced. I don't think we're going to, I think that's already been bet down enough as far as outright. And then correspondingly, his top 10 has probably been bet down significantly. There's 50-1 at BetMGM for Eric Jones. There's 60-1 at Superbook. Those are the longest. If we look at equivalent top 10 odds, Eric Jones is plus 160 for a top 10.
I was saying, I haven't seen anything longer than plus 175, and I don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't hate it. I certainly don't hate it. I mean, given how he's run the last 2 mile and a halves,
I'm not running to bet
I don't hate that at all. But I'm not running to bet it. Exactly. Exactly.
If he goes out and qualifies like he normally does in the 20s, and they make him plus 250, then I'll hit it. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at with whereas that
100% agree.
That's a situation, comparing Eric Jones to Bubba Wallace, because I think Bubba Wallace is going to go out here and compete for the pole. He competes for the pole, all of a sudden he's going to be minus 200 for a top 10.
Yeah.
That's why
minus
I'm running to bet.
150 at least, yeah.
That's why I'm running to bet him right now for top 10 at plus 100. Like, that's just the difference. And I'm
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you.
So,
It's good that we're on the same page this weekend because I feel we're both pretty confident about these things.
Yes.
And
Which
even in things like Eric Jones,
or awful.
even in things like Eric Jones, we both feel good about his race prospects, but not at necessarily the prices right now for the specific markets. But we could see ourselves getting there in certain markets as well. That's why I threw a little bit on Eric Jones at 80-1 to win. I only actually bet that because of, like I said, I saw the movement from 75 to 60, but also I wanted a little deposit in case Circa or some other book opened him 100-1, right? Like, I definitely would have hit 101 pretty hard, but I was kind of making a little deposit at 80, seeing if I could get a triple-digit number, because that's where I feel like he probably more should be, but I didn't want to miss out on an 80-1, knowing he opened other places 75 and got immediately bet to 60.
Mm-hmm. Any other bets you like here? So I really liked, just off the top of my head, I really liked Bubba Wallace plus 100 over Ross Chastain because of Chastain's recent form. What I did not actually look at, so I made that bet before actually looking at true numbers. But you look at Ross Chastain and his numbers at Vegas, at Kansas, at, I know you didn't, we're not going to talk about Charlotte, but Texas, Vegas last year, it's really good. Like, his numbers are really good. I'm not as confident in that bet, but I could not pass up the plus 100 head to head. It has since moved, I believe. I think it's minus 120 now. Bubba Wallace is favored. But any other bets that you like as far as, outside of outrights this week? Because I don't think there's much value on outrights.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think, let's be real. You and I know where we're looking for value on outrights. But that kind of translates to so does everybody else, because this track type specifically has very predictive data. So I don't think there's a ton of value on outrights. I could see something like if, and it's a massive if Chastain or Suarez Trackhouse form returns to where it's been at this track type, especially Kansas and Vegas, value on both of those. But like, remember last year, Jordan, when me, you, and PJ were hanging out at PJ's place for the Coca-Cola 600, Indy 500, whatever, and I said I would literally eat dog shit if Daniel Suarez won the race at 40-1. And now he's 80-1, and we're not even talking about him. And because people were betting him at 40-1 last year. Who's betting him at 81 right now? Nobody. But guess what? He was 10th in flags earlier this year at this exact track. I would bet him 80-1 if I thought he was going to be 10th in speed right now. That's the Trackhouse fall off, right? Like, they haven't sustained what they had earlier or last year.
What are his best top 10 odds right now?
Oh, good question. At least on what I have,
275
on the Action Bet Center is can't even find them. Yeah, plus 275 at DraftKings. Let me see what FanDuel has.
275 on Bet 365.
Yeah, 275 on Bet 365. I'm pulling up FanDuel right now.
285 on Betfred.
And FanDuel is 260. So, yeah, 285 is the best out there with Betfred. I don't hate that at all. Honestly, I don't hate that at all.
Neither do I. I don't like that I don't hate it.
I know, it's literally the exact same thing. Dude, we're on the same page this week. I don't like that I don't hate it.
Yeah, I don't, because so you look at Suarez, average running position this year at Vegas 13.6, average running position at Kansas 13, 14.8 at Texas. Like, it's right there fringe. A lot of these numbers are fringe on the the perfect, or not the perfect scenario, but a good scenario happening at the end of the race, he gets into the top 10. So when you're looking at odds of plus 285, plus 250, that's where it makes sense to bet him.
Yep.
Same with Eric. It's the exact same situation with Eric Jones. Eric Jones actually has a little better numbers. Average running position, Kansas 2, 9.4. Average running position at Texas, 8.9. 14.7 in the first Vegas race. But Jones and Suarez, Jones especially, he's not quite where I want to bet him top 10 yet.
Yeah.
Suarez is fringe. Like Jones, I wish it was backed like a few weeks ago when like books were just casually throwing out Eric Jones 4-1, 5-1, same as they do as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Because they kind of like put those in the same category. But right now, the best I can see for Eric Jones is like he's plus 160 according to Action Network. I think I saw him at plus 180 somewhere else. Not good enough for me to bet him on that. But Suarez, what did I say Suarez was? Plus 285 on Betfred. God damn it. It's the same thing as last week where I didn't want to bet Allmendinger because I don't like him. I don't like Daniel Suarez. But 285 is a good number. You take my bias out of it. It's a good number to bet. I'm not betting it though. I'm putting all my money on Bubba Wallace this week. That's what I'm doing.
I want that Bubba Wallace top. I mean, as soon as we get off this podcast, I'm betting that Bubba Wallace top 10.
Cash out my 401k. Throw it on Bubba Wallace top 10.
Responsible gaming. Don't cash out your 401k. I have an obligation to. I have an obligation to mention that, given what industry I work in and who I work for.
The number of times we've had to say responsible gaming this episode is
it's a big, very important thing. I love the Bubba Wallace bet just as much as you do, Jordan. Promise you. But please be responsible.
Don't take anything I say serious. Well, like take what I say serious, but like comments like that.
No, seriously, take what he says serious because Jordan will literally throw $1,500 on Ryan Blaney for a top 10 finish and then lose it all. But that's the whole point. You can throw $1,500 on something that you feel like is a relatively sure thing, and then Ryan Blaney finishes 11th.
And then you get depressed, Jordan, for a week.
I lost my favorite bet of the playoffs last week. Don't take anything for granted. But I absolutely love Bubba Wallace top 10 this week.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite bet.
I think I'd like it at like minus 150, dude.
Yeah, and it's sitting out there at like DraftKings at minus 125. Like everyone is undervaluing Bubba Wallace so much this week.
100% agree.
I will say this is my second favorite bet of the year. My first favorite bet was Christopher Bell stage bet at the first Richmond race over Eric Jones.
Okay, 100%. I like that one a lot. But my favorite bet was no 2-stage winners at the Daytona 500 at whatever the fuck we got it at because that was stupid.
And for anybody that regularly listens to this podcast, that is how much we like this Bubba Wallace top 10 bet.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
We are putting it into the category of Christopher Bell over Eric Jones, stage 1 at Richmond. That is how confident I am at this fucking bet.
That was insane. That was insane. Yeah, I threw what was it, 2.5 or 3 units on it, whatever it was, to win 2.5 or 3 units on that. That was something ridiculous. Yeah. So, Jordan, because you're a verified expert for NASCAR in the Action app, but we were always sent with these rules when we became verified experts in there. We can't track stale lines, this, that, the other. One of the other things is we can't track more than 3 units in the app.
Oh, really? I didn't know that one.
Yeah. We can't track bets of above 3 units. And so I've actually specifically talked to my my bosses about this, and it was I think I did track one that was more than 3 units once, but it was very specifically you have approval for this situation with this odds and this whatever. But yeah, There have been bets that I've wanted to track more than 2 or 3 units, and this might be one of those.
That is a rule. I just looked up the rule as you were talking.
Well,
nothing more.
It's part of responsible gaming, right? Like,
right, yeah.
We're not telling people to bet the house or bet the 401k because inevitably,
but
if 99.9, well, what I'm saying is that if inevitably 99.9% of people don't do that, 0.1% of people that do, and then it loses, it's like, then what?
Mm-hmm. No, that rule never came into my mind because that's how, like, I'm never
rare.
That confident.
That's how rare it is.
Never that confident in a bet.
Minus Brian Blaney, 15 units. That was, to be fair, that was 2 years ago before you became a verified expert. You haven't had a 15-unit bomb banger since then.
Exactly. Yeah. This week, Bubba Wallace might be a 15-unit bomb banger though. Like that's
responsibly.
Responsibly. I mean, 1.5 unit times 10.
Exactly. No, I absolutely love Bubba Wallace even money. I will be betting it pretty heftily as soon as we wrap up here.
Yeah, man, that's where I'm at. All right, let's get it. Let's get the picks to win here.
Are we picking the playoff?
2 hours.
Like, are we picking the Final Four or
Final Four? Yeah,
just
pick
the winner?
Let's pick Final Four first. Final Four for the playoffs. Let's do that first.
It's pretty hard to go against Byron with these tracks, so I'm gonna take Byron.
Smart.
It's pretty hard to go against Denny Hamlin with these tracks, so I'm gonna go with Denny Hamlin. Larson has hit or miss at Martinsville, so I'm not shooting him in.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there's the recency with Martin Truex Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But Larson is a fucking beast at Homestead, so it comes down to like Reddick.
Yep.
Potentially Chris Buescher, honestly, I think could influence Homestead. Larson. And Truex is a weird one. He's good at all these, but he's never like the most dominant guy at all of these. Especially recently.
Used to be at Homestead, but not anymore.
Well,
which is weird.
Used to be at Martinsville too. Man, remember 2019? He led like 400 something laps at Martinsville in a 500 lap race. So yeah, it's just Martinsville is kind of a wild card. So I'm locking in Byron and Hamlin. I feel like Bell is just
there.
He's there. He's the guy that has the potential to win all 3 of these. That's on the outside looking in. But I don't believe. So Bell's out. So I'm putting Bell out. I'm putting Blaney out.
Mm-hmm.
Blaney has to win Martinsville. He's not going to.
Nope.
I think Tyler Reddick's amazing. I think he's talented. But for me, I think it comes down to a win for him, and he has so much variance. He's like a Kyle Busch. He's like a Ross Chastain. He's like one of those guys, a younger Kyle Larson. So Reddick's out for me. So Bell, Reddick, and Blaney are out. It honestly comes down to Chris Buescher versus Larson and Truex. And I'm putting Buescher out because I think Las Vegas and Martinsville are enough to keep him out. So I'm keeping the top 4 that are currently the top 4 into the Final Four.
Byron, Truex, Hamlin, Larson for you.
Yep. I'm going chalk. And you know me, I love to pick weirdos like Joey Logano out in the first round, or Kyle Busch out in the second round. I love tail end probabilities, but I'm eating the chalk this round, taking the top 4. And if that is the top 4, if those are the 4 that make it to Phoenix is gonna be fucking insane.
Yeah, 100% agree. I also agree with you that I think that's the Final Four. I I took a walk before this podcast, and I spent a good majority of it thinking about what the Final Four would be. And to me, Byron, Larson, Hamlin, Shoeins, and then it just comes down to Truex, Buescher, or Reddick or Bell. I don't think Blaney has a chance.
I agree with you.
To me, it's those four, same as you, Final Four, but prediction wise, I'm going to go Byron, Hamlin, Larson, and I'm going to go Reddick. I'm throwing Reddick in there. I think he steals one either this week at Vegas or at Homestead. So give me Reddick, but again, I'm right there with you. It's if Reddick doesn't win these next two races, it's the current four. That's where I'm at.
I agree. Why are we so on the same page this week and this round? It's scary.
Because
it's normal
for this
tracks.
round, it's because this playoff system works. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. If the tracks work, I think the system may not work as well next year with Atlanta in the first round.
Yeah, that could definitely
and Watkins Glen in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. But
like, you
this
fucking
year,
kidding me? We don't have a classic mile and a half or intermediate, even if you want to like count Michigan or Auto Club. We don't have a fucking standard short flat. We got 3 oddball tracks in the first round. That's absolute. It's garbage. But I agree, it works right now with what we have.
it's
But
NASCAR.
I still, even with what we have right now, I'd still like to see 4-3-2-1.
1000% agree. But hey, we have, since the playoffs started, the winner has been picked on this show for 4 of the 6 races, including the last 3. You picked Allmendinger last week. I picked Blaney the week before. I picked Byron the week before that. Mm-hmm. We're on a 3-race streak.
To be fair, you're on fire. I finally caught up.
So you have 3 wins this year. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who's your pick? You're going first this week. Who's your pick to win Las Vegas? Larson?
Yeah.
They're going Larson.
I got to take Larson. I don't know. I don't have any other reason because I think all the top 4 are really close, plus Reddick. I think a couple other drivers can sneak in there, but for some reason I'm just gravitating towards Larson.
I want to go Byron.
I feel like he's so obvious though, and I actually feel like Larson's
so obvious.
Better.
He's so obvious, and I picked Byron 3 of the last 5 races.
It was like when I was picking Kyle Busch every other race. It felt like.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with this. Give me. I don't want to put my streak in jeopardy here because I have three straight picks of
pick
top
your best
2.
pick. Just
Tyler
pick your
Reddick.
best pick.
Tyler Reddick wins Las Vegas too.
Oh, I don't hate that.
I'm going with it. Oh man,
this round is gonna be honestly, aside from Blaney, I think this round is gonna be really good. Like Buescher has been so strong lately. It's gonna be a good round.
it is. Yeah, give me Tyler Reddick right now. I think it's Tyler Reddick, Larson, Hamlin, Byron, of course. I think Chastain might surprise some people, but Bubba Wallace.
Yeah.
Right there. Top 5, Bubba Wallace.
I could see Bowman, Suarez, Gibbs, Elliott, right? Those ones we've talked about from earlier this year, that's those same teams. Not necessarily surprising, but factoring in, you know what I mean?
That's another. Bowman's another one that I really want to bet top 10 this week, and I probably will by the end of the weekend because he's not going to qualify high. So he's currently sitting at what, plus 125, plus 130, plus 140. Give me a 16th place qualifying effort again out of Bowman. They bump him up to plus 180, plus 200. Give me that.
So one other thing we haven't talked about. Chase Elliott's in the Owners' Championship.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of got to think about that a little bit, right? Because the Owners' Championship is technically the big money for the owner, right? Now, the Drivers' Championship matters a lot too. The owner gets a lot of that, but also the driver gets a great chunk of that. So very interesting spot there. And you know who's not in the Owners' Championship? Martin Truex Jr.
So what do you think that means for Truex?
I don't think it means anything for him. I think it means something for Elliott.
Elliott also doesn't have a win this year.
Right. But if he wins, he's into the Owners' Championship.
Like at Phoenix.
At Phoenix, yeah.
Hmm.
And if Truex wins, he's into Phoenix for the drivers, but not the owners. He's out, like, for the owners. So something else to think about. And you know, it's just one of those things that kind of crossed my mind when we went to the drivers that are outside of the playoffs looking in. When I said Bowman, Suarez, Gibbs, Elliott, like, Chase Elliott can still win the Owners' Championship. As long as they don't have another skiing accident.
Right? Wouldn't that be something, though?
Snowboarding. Yeah, that would be something. If we had a different owner and driver champion, that'd be insane.
When's the last time that's happened?
Fuck if I know, dude. Probably never. Not Cup, anyway.
Right.
I'm sure it's happening
the other
in
series,
trucks.
it makes a little more... Yeah, makes more sense on those series, but...
Yeah. So, anyway, just food for thought, but we've had a hell of a long episode. This might be our longest of the season.
No. We're only at 2:22. I think we had a 2:45.
Did we? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Close, though. We're close. We haven't had one this long in a long time.
We can go for another half hour if you want. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I might want to catch the third period of this Vegas Golden Knights game, so.
Yeah.
You know.
But hey, all right. Good luck to everybody this weekend. Las Vegas. Root for Bubba Wallace, top 10. Bubba Wallace gets a top 10. We're both going to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to talk about Homestead, Martinsville, and Phoenix, these last three races after Vegas. But this should be a very good race. And maybe we'll get a winner that shakes up these playoff standings. These what we're expecting from the playoffs, because we both kind of root for those underdogs and an underdog story. So hopefully we see that and not the chalk hit. But that's all we got. I don't got anything else. I'm ready.
I don't either. I'm real quick looking at Circa, because they somehow actually posted before we went on air, which actually they haven't been doing recently. But I think because it's the Vegas race, all the Vegas books are getting lines up early. They have Bowman at 45, whereas everywhere else has at longest 35. So I think that's pretty interesting. They have Bubba at 20 versus 20 everywhere else. Elliott at 18 versus 16 everywhere else. So a little longer on Chase Elliott. Busher, they have at 16, which, you know, he's 20 at Bet Rivers, KMB Books. Christopher Bell, they have 12 versus 12. Suarez, they have 75 versus 80. Hamlin, they have at 5.5, which is interesting if you're getting 6 at other places. Let me see what they have Kyle Larson at. They have Joey Logano 45-1. 45-1 on Joey Logano, and he's 30 at longest
Who would
anywhere
have thought
else.
that?
But
it makes sense.
But
though.
like, I
That's where
can't
they're
bet
at.
him at 45-1. I can't.
Nope.
You just can't. That's why Circa is so sharp. Because they're setting longer than anywhere else in Joey Logano, and people see that and they'll bet it. But I don't think it's valued at 45-1.
Nope.
They have Harvick at 45-1. They have
Could you
Rowdy
imagine?
at 17, and he's 14 anywhere else.
Like that 45-1 on Logano at any mile and a half is just. I think that's a testament to this new car, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. They have Ty Gibbs at 30 versus 40 everywhere else. Like, they're along our lines of thinking. We're like, it's going to be Hendrick, Toyota.
Here's a note for you. This is what's crazy. Like, I didn't think I had to look this up to make sure I was right. So they have Joey Logano 45-1. You said.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who has the best average finish at Las Vegas Motor Speedway?
Joey Logano.
Joey Logano. Guess who has the most active wins at Las Vegas Motor Speedway?
Yeah,
Joey Logano.
I know.
Three wins
at
in
a
20
Joey Logano
starts.
race win. I was at a Joey Logano race win here in Vegas. Like, he and Keselowski dominated in those Penske's cars
He won this race last year.
Yeah, last year was a little weird, but just in general, like from 13, 14, whatever it was, until 18 or so before they switched over that new formula in 19, 20. I feel like Joey Logano just dominated everything at Vegas, and Keselowski did too. But when have Joey Logano's wins at Las Vegas been? I see 2020, I see 2019, and last year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually wrong about 14 to 18, but it feels like he dominated those as well. Like, he finished fourth in 2014. In 15, he finished 10th. 16, he finished
he was
second.
Great here from 2014 through 2020. He led at least 40 laps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So 70% of the time he led 40 or more laps. Like that's yeah.
And now he's 45-1.
Am I about to bet Joey Logano? He won the pole here earlier this year.
I don't care. He was whatever the fuck it was in flags. He was 18th in flags.
I might bet him pole though. What's this pole?
I definitely don't hate pole bet, but that's the thing about the Fords, right? They're fast on the short run. They have that slim down nose. They suffer from that slim down nose because they don't make the downforce in the corners, so it hurts their tires more. And when you get to a medium high tire wear, hot day, low humidity, so you're not getting that extra downforce. Like, Vegas is one of the worst mile and a halves for these Penske cars. That's why I like Charlotte so much for Blaney and Joey. But Vegas arguably is the worst mile and a half because it's lower humidity than Kansas, and it's typically just as hot, if not hotter than Kansas. It's not a good track. It's not a good track for the Fords.
20-1, Joey Logano, pole.
Pole, I'm fine with. That's a whole different story than a long race run. You know what I mean?
I like that bet.
I'm fine with the pole bet. I am not okay with even 45 is kind of tempting. Not gonna lie. Not okay with like 30-1 on Joey Logano in this race. Whereas I loved Blaney 30-1 to win Charlotte. Right? It's not all mile and a halves are created equal. And we've already seen this tire combination. Whereas Charlotte was a different tire combination. That's another reason I like Blaney is like, well, hey, we throw another tire into the mix. How does that shake things up? But we know this tire combination. We know this heat, humidity, or lack of humidity, I should say, is bad for the Fords. So for the pole, yeah, one quick lap, absolutely. But not a full race win for Joe Logano.
I'm going to have to bet Logano 20-1, pole odds.
Oh, no.
But early Jordan Jinx. No, Jordan Jinx this week is Bubba Wallace. So expect Bubba Wallace to hit that wall on between lap 1 or lap 7. That's what I'm calling. He's gonna have a catastrophic failure between lap 1 and 7 this week.
It's how it feels like for these big bets that we have.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'm just looking up green flag speed at the most recent Kansas race because, to be fair, I did not do flags for it because it takes me some time to do. I need to look at film. I need to look at where the cautions were, when a car was damaged, all that stuff. So flags takes time, and that was right at the start of NFL season, so I ain't got time for flags right now. Joey Logano was 14th in speed at Kansas, and you might say, well, he finished 5th. Well, that was a pretty lucky 5th place finish for Joe Logano at Kansas relative to where he actually ran on speed. Finished 21st at Texas. I don't really care to look up his speed there, but yeah, I don't think the Fords quite have it at this track type, especially in the heat and low humidity.
But in qualifying, it may be a different story.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, 1 lap versus 10 laps is a massive difference.
Yeah.
87 and straight up sunny as fuck here in Las Vegas on Sunday.
Yep.
Low humidity, low wind.
Toyotas and Hendrick, as we've talked about this entire episode.
So it is. We tried to reach the 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah. We didn't quite get there.
2.5. Good enough.
Good luck to everybody this weekend. Thank you for listening if you made it this far. And we'll be back next week to talk about...
I'm kidding.
We will be back next week to talk about Homestead, which is... I love Homestead. Homestead's one of my favorite tracks.
I agree.
Yeah. So we have some
it's
great
right
races.
up there with Pocono.
Vegas this week, Homestead, fuck Martinsville, and then Phoenix. Obviously the finale. So, man, we're getting
Martinsville's my 40th birthday weekend. So
4 races left. Yeah. All right, that's it. Cut this episode. Everyone. Good luck. Thanks for listening. See you guys next week. Talk to you guys next week. There we go. See ya.